This novel only had a single reader. Yet on the very day the novel came to an end, the fictional world suddenly became reality. Cruel ghosts and a steadily escalating death game officially descended upon humanity. As for me, the sole reader of this novel, I was also the only one who knew how the world would end. Right then, a train suddenly screeched to a halt. Immediately afterward, a wave of urgent announcements echoed through the entire carriage. All passengers, please evacuate immediately. While the passengers inside were wondering what was going on, a flash of lightning suddenly burst across the carriage. A furry monster instantly appeared before everyone's eyes. Well, you folks have been living quite comfortably, haven't you? Now, the death game is about to begin. Yet many passengers didn't take its words seriously at all, and instead cursed at it to get lost. The very next second, those passengers who spoke up exploded on the spot. In an instant, the entire carriage descended into panic and endless screams. At that moment, a daring, bespectacled man stepped forward. As long as you let me go, I'll give you however much money you want. Just as he smugly believed in the hard truth that money makes the mare go, the monster suddenly snapped its fingers. A second later, whatever was in the man's hands, the billion-dollar check burst into flames instantly. Such scrap paper holds no value in the macro-dimensional world. If you ever try something like that again, I will blow your head off. Then that monster suddenly burst into wild laughter. Enough messing around. Enjoy the game feast. As soon as it finished speaking, a task panel suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Main quest received. Time limit 30 minutes. Kill a living creature within 30 minutes or be executed. Reward 300 coins. Following that, the monster let out an evil laugh and vanished before everyone's eyes. This game testing human nature had officially begun. As time ticked away bit by bit, some people dialed the police to ask for rescue. Some prayed on the spot, hoping it was all just a dream. Others tried to smash the subway windows and escape. Yet I knew all of this was in vain. Once the time was up, no one present would be spared. After all, I knew this was a live broadcast facing the entire universe. And the content of the broadcast was precisely the web novel I had been following for over 10 years. As the absolute only reader of this novel, I was also the only person who knew how this world would end. What I could not understand, however, was that Marcus, one of the major supporting characters in the story, had actually appeared ahead of schedule. You have to understand, he was a character who only showed up after the first main scenario. Could I have remembered it wrong? So I hurriedly took out my phone to check the novel's contents, only to find that the novel had already been taken down. Luckily, as the #1 superfan of the story, the author had actually sent me the complete original novel file. What shocked me even more was that I managed to finish reading all 3,000+ chapters in less than 2.5 minutes. And I finally understood why Marcus had appeared early. It was because the story in the novel took place in carriage 3707, while the carriage I was in was 3708. Furthermore, only 2 people could survive in this carriage. One was Army Lieutenant Marcus, and the other was that psycho. As time slowly ticked by, humanity's apathy finally provoked the monster's fury. Without hesitation, it went straight for the remaining, shallowing the remaining 20 minutes of game time down to just 10 minutes. If no one commits a murder within 5 minutes, everyone here will die on the spot. This announcement completely opened the Pandora box of human malice. A white-haired man immediately slapped an elderly person beside him. He was Kyle, the second survivor of this train carriage. Once someone took the lead, more people joined in. After all, nobody wanted to die. I watched all of this in silence. It was not because I had lost my humanity like them, but because I was waiting for the right moment. Right at that moment, the train carriage suffered a violent collision. Seeing this chance, I seized the opportunity and rushed into the crowd, flying forward through the chaos. Then I hurriedly searched around through the smoke, and finally found the little boy among the crowd. Amidst his startled gaze, I took off the insect box from his body, and took out something, before turning around to shout for everyone to stop. After killing this old man, who are you going to target next? And will you not just end up killing each other until the very end? Hearing these words, Kyle sneered from the side, and said, why not just kill a coward like you next? I ignored him, and continued speaking to the crowd. I continued telling everyone that they did not need to be so desperate, because I had a way for all of us to survive. Did you forget the condition to clear the scenario? You just need to kill any living creature. With that, I took a grasshopper out of my insect box. So who said that you have to kill people to complete the task? Hearing this, everyone suddenly understood. Yet holding the insect box also made me the target of everyone's hostility. At that moment, everyone looked like vengeful spirits crawling out of hell as they rushed toward me. Seeing this, I hurriedly crushed the bug in my hand. Then I threw the insect box right into the crowd. At the same time, I cleared the scenario, and I obtained my reward. The carriage instantly descended into chaos. Everyone went crazy searching everywhere for bugs. Kyle remained unfazed, instead bursting into frantic laughter. Instead of keeping the bug, you threw it away. Tell me, do you just really love seeing this kind of chaotic scene? Right at that moment, Kyle's character information suddenly appeared before my eyes. He was just a middle schooler with delusions of grandeur, exactly as described in the novel. Kyle actually sent me a party invitation. He wanted to enjoy this feast of slaughter together with me. If I had not read the novel, I probably would have agreed to his offer just to survive. But now I have my own path to walk. So I told him that I prefer working alone. Seeing me refuse, Kyle did not get angry. Instead, he walked around me and prepared to finish off the old man on the ground. Seeing that, I grabbed him by the arm. And that action of mine instantly enraged him. I thought you were the same kind of person as me. Turns out you were just the type I hate the most. With that, he threw a punch right at my face. I hurriedly raised my arm to block it. This guy actually activated his awakening skill. Kyle also seemed to feel the changes happening in his body. And then he started attacking me even more frantically. At that critical moment, a system window suddenly popped up. You have met the basic conditions to use your exclusive skill Absolute Territory. Seeing this, I did not hesitate at all, and immediately activated my exclusive skill. From then on, every single one of Kyle's attacks was anticipated by me in advance. Even after thrashing around for ages, he could not even lay a single finger on me. Realizing the time limit was about to expire, Kyle had no choice but to turn his attention back to the old man behind me. Seeing this, I quickly protected the old man. I had to stop this antisocial psychopath from completing the mission. But then, he suddenly pulled out a dagger. And his target was my heart. Even though I foresaw it, he still managed to slash my shoulder. I was starting to lose strength from the blood loss. If this kept up, this lunatic would eventually kill me. Now, my only choice was to fight for my life. I immediately crushed the insect egg in my hand. If I guessed correctly, following the original story would trigger a flood of rewards. A second later, the notifications started ringing nonstop. At that moment, Kyle rushed toward me, swinging his dagger. In the nick of time, I quickly used all the rewards and gold coins to strengthen my physical abilities. With a crisp system notification, my body strength received an unprecedented boost. Just then, Kyle's dagger stabbed toward my chest. But he discovered that the dagger couldn't penetrate my body even an inch. Refusing to believe it, he frantically stabbed my chest dozens of times. Yet, he still couldn't scratch me. Then, I said coldly, "Do you really think you've adapted to the rules of this world?" Just as I finished speaking, the final countdown for the mission appeared before everyone. 2. Kyle also exploded right before me, filled with fear and resentment. The main quest of the first phase officially came to an end at this moment. At this point, only 5 survivors remained in car 3708. My colleague Nora, the insect boy Eli, Howard, and me, the only one who knew the ending of this world. Then the train slowly started moving. Just when everyone thought they could finally go home, they found that the outside world was already devastated and in ruins. Only I knew that the old world had perished, and a brand new world was being born. Suddenly, a golden light flashed. The monster appeared inside the carriage again. The remaining survivors in front of it brought it a slight surprise. It did not expect so many to remain. Since you could overcome the hardships, you can also receive the rewards you deserve. Next, you will be able to obtain the sponsorship qualifications of the Constellations. Are you excited? Constellations are the most mysterious existence in the novel world, and also reside at the distant peaks of the nebula. The masterminds watching this Battle Royale livestream. I was really looking forward to seeing which constellation would sponsor me. With a snap of the monster's fingers, everyone's task windows popped up with new notifications. Choose your sponsor. The constellation you choose will become your reliable support. My options made my heart race. For different constellations were actually willing to back me. Keep in mind, that guy only received 5 invitations. Although these constellations won't reveal their real names. As someone who read the novel, I already knew their true identities. Black Flame Dragon of the Abyss. The leader of a powerful nebula and the ceiling of combat power in the early game. But that's only for the early game. His weaknesses are also obvious. Using his energy too frequently leads to mental pollution, eventually turning you into a crazed demon. Demonic Judge of Fire. The name sounds pretty sinister. But his true identity is Uriel, the archangel who judges evil. Secret Great King Ultraman. He really is secret, isn't he? As a diehard fan of the novel, I knew about the great constellations. Prisoner of the Golden Headband. My heart skipped a beat when I saw this nickname. I didn't expect this constellation to actually offer me an invitation early on. I am sure you watching the screen cannot help but get excited hearing his name. He is the master of Flower Fruit Mountain. The Monkey King with fiery eyes of truth. The great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong. If I choose him as my sponsor constellation, can I beat that guy on the other side? Soon everyone selected their respective constellations. And that monster dropped. A line saying "see you in 10 minutes" and vanished. At that moment, Marcus walked over and shook my hand, thanking me for the warning. Then he asked for my thoughts on what to do next. Clearly having gained some trust in me because of my performance, I stated that we must leave this place as soon as possible. Hearing my words, the others were dumbfounded. There were monsters everywhere outside. Going out now was practically asking for death. Just then, a loud crash came from the carriage door behind us. Standing behind that iron door was the sole survivor of Carriage 3707, and also the true protagonist of the original novel. The regressor who stopped at nothing to achieve his goals. You could say that besides me, that guy was the one who understood the rules of this world best. I quickly warned everyone to run away from here at once. Otherwise we would all die once the scenario began. Marcus asked in confusion. The person behind that iron door is not necessarily an enemy, right? I said in a deep voice. He is a survivor who must have killed countless people to make it this far. Do you really want to wait until he gets in? Hearing this, everyone hurriedly started looking for an exit. Yet they searched everywhere only to find a jammed iron door. Seeing the banging on the door from the next carriage grow more and more violent, everyone felt their hearts leap into their throats. If he managed to break through, he would surely treat us like easy EXP to farm. Then I looked over at Marcus. In the original novel, he was a strength-based tank. So I told him, hurry up and use your skill. Hearing this, he looked completely blank. It was not that he did not understand my words, but rather that he knew he had a skill, yet had no idea how to activate it. I quickly told him to picture it in his mind to use the skill. Without wasting any more time, he directly began pulling on the iron door with all his might. To my surprise, his loud roar actually managed to pry the iron door open a crack. Without any hesitation, we rushed outside. Yet before we could take a few steps, the monster that had vanished appeared once again, and immediately issued the second scenario to us. Cross the broken bridge within 10 minutes. The consequences of failure are unknown, with a 200 coin penalty. Seeing this, Nora looked confused. The bridge clearly wasn't broken. I warned everyone to run, because if the mission said the bridge would break, it definitely would. Sure enough, before we had gone very far, a massive whirlpool suddenly appeared on the river's surface. Then, a giant sea dragon burst through the water. At the same time, the people who had already died suddenly turned into zombies and swarmed toward us. While everyone was stunned, the sea dragon suddenly snapped its jaws shut on the bridge. In the next second, the bridge was bitten clean in half. Only Marcus and Eli managed to make it across. Meanwhile, Nora, Howard, and I were left on the other side. Just as I was thinking about how to cross, Nora suddenly activated her shelter skill. Immediately, the broken bridge reconnected, forming a bridge of light that could only be crossed by an even number of people. But there were 3 of us, which meant one person wouldn't be able to cross. Right then, a fierce gust of wind from a punch came whistling toward me. I quickly leaped back to create some distance. If it were just a zombie turned from an ordinary person, it wouldn't be a threat to me. But the guy in front of me happened to be Kyle in disguise. Zombies grow stronger based on the power of their hosts. Before I can even think, Kyle rushes straight at me. Seeing that, I quickly dodge to the side. Then I turn around and tell Nora and the others to go first. Who would have thought that the moment I turn my head, I see Glasses Boy carrying her and running fast toward the other side of the bridge. Seriously, the least you could do is give me 2 seconds to deliver a heroic speech. Right at that moment, Kyle suddenly lets out a roar. The next second, countless zombies swarm toward me as if receiving an order. After a round of fighting, my stamina begins to run out, and there is less than 15 minutes left for the mission. Damn it. If only I had a single combat skill. This time I might actually die. Yet right at that moment, the system suddenly prompts me. Exclusive skill bookmark triggered. Soon, a list of characters appears before my eyes. Even though I read through the entire novel, I have never seen this skill before. Yet by intuition, I somehow know how to use it. Then I shout out loudly. Activate bookmark. In a split second, I acquire Kyle's dark transformation skill, lasting for 1 minute. Meanwhile, Kyle lunges at me again. I move like a beast in the dark, taking him out with a single strike. After the skill effect fades, my body feels utterly weak. Facing the hundreds and thousands of zombies before me, I no longer have the strength to fight. Yet right at that moment, an explosion suddenly echoed from behind the horde of corpses. A cold-looking man tore through the sea of monsters with absolute, overwhelming force. He was the protagonist of the novel, the regressor blessed with countless exclusive skills. Victor. Even though I had the omniscient reader's viewpoint, my heart was racing with panic. That was because I had to face the main character of this novel, a ruthless regressor who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. Even with all my mental preparation, facing such immense pressure from the main character still made my skin crawl. Before I could even speak, Victor suddenly grabbed me by the throat and demanded why I was not dead. As a veteran player of this death game, Victor was going through his third regression in this scenario. He knew very well that the only survivors of CAR 3708 were Kyle and Marcus. Yet now, an unfamiliar survivor had somehow appeared. When I told him I survived by eating insects, Victor refused to believe it, and immediately activated his exclusive skill, Sage's Eye. This was an SS rank investigative skill that allowed him to pry into the target's information. Right at that moment, the system suddenly gave me a prompt. My exclusive skill, Fourth Wall, was triggered. A golden light burst in front of Victor, blocking the effect of his Sage's Eye. This left Victor looking completely shocked. Having already gone through 3 regressions, he had never encountered such a situation before. Consequently, he judged me to be an extremely dangerous individual. Looking into Victor's murderous eyes, I quickly claimed that I possessed the ability to foresee the future. I could help him complete the 41st scenario that he could not pass on his own, attempting to entice Victor into becoming my companion. However, after being tempered by 3 rebirths, Victor had long since become the most dangerous figure in the early stages of the novel. He would nip any potential danger in the bud without hesitation. Then he grabbed me and dragged me across to the other side of the bridge. Just when I thought I was finally going to survive, Victor suddenly said, "Since you are a prophet, you should know your own future as well." With that, he hauled me right up to the edge of the bridge. Guess whether I will throw you down or not. As the only reader of the novel, I understood this guy better than anyone. I immediately laughed and said, "Put me down right now, you damned bastard." Sure enough, the next second, Victor loosened his grip. Watching myself fall bit by bit toward the mouth of the fish dragon, Victor sneered and said, "I believe you now. You truly are a prophet." Fortunately, the fish dragon did not chew me to pieces. Instead, I slid down its esophagus straight into its stomach. However, according to the novel, the fish dragon starts secreting stomach acid half an hour after eating. So I had to escape from here as soon as possible. Right then, that Dakibi suddenly appeared before me. I had anticipated this, though. The failure penalty shown in the previous quest details was 3 question marks. Sure enough, it spoke, saying it would spare my life if I paid 5,100 coins. Hearing that, I rolled my eyes and thought, "You really calculated this out, did you?" This happened to be all the wealth I had. So I replied, "You are not going to kill me, because my stellar performance in this survival game has attracted the Constellations to watch, and as a broadcaster you naturally stand to profit greatly from it. Am I right, low-grade Dakibi Bix, who stammered in shock? How do you even know my name?" I whispered back, "Turn off your broadcast channel, and I will tell you." Desperate to know why, it quickly shut down the broadcast channel. Just as it was about to speak, I cut it off. How I know all this is not important. What matters is whether you want to become a Dakibi king. Make a contract with me. I can make you the greatest streamer in the entire universe. This novel had only a single reader, yet the author kept updating it for 10 years. But on the very day the novel was completed, the fictional world suddenly became reality. A broadcast targeting the entire universe descended upon every planet, and the subscribers were constellations of mythological gods from various realms. They all had their own overly dramatic usernames. Humanity was treated like mere dolls, forced to act as characters in this deadly survival broadcast, merely for the entertainment of the constellations. Dakibi streamers served as the bridge, connecting humans and the divine constellations. The constellations would not directly interfere with human activities, but they could choose favored humans to act as their avatars, enjoying the game through roleplay, refusing to become mere puppets for these constellations. I directly rejected their sponsorship choices. I knew that to survive in this world, the first rule was to walk alongside the protagonist of the novel. Before that, however, I needed to earn his trust. So I decided to do something that no one had ever thought of. That was to sign a contract with the goblin streamer standing right in front of me. My condition was to help him become the king of Dakibis. Hearing this, Bix's eyes lit up. Yet the next second, he suddenly burst out laughing. After all, any goblin would think it was absurd. A mere mortal dared to make such a boast to him. Furthermore, he did not belong to any constellation. Thus, he flatly rejected my proposal. Yet I told him that I was not after his power. Instead, I wanted to sign an exclusive contract with his streaming channel. Streaming contracts were originally made between streamers and constellations. Constellations could manifest as incarnations on specific channels to find amusement. Meanwhile, the goblin streamer would collect a portion of the coins, earned by the constellation incarnations, as a service fee. At that, Bix said with a grimace, "You do not even have a backer, yet you dare mention a streaming contract? Do you want me to squash you right now?" I told him that having no backer was precisely my greatest value. Constellations generally fall into 2 categories: those who wander across various channels looking for fun and killing time, and those who scout incarnations to engage in roleplay. If you want to become a top streamer, you have to satisfy one of those types. But what if there was an incarnation who didn't sign a contract with any constellation? And what if he could show abilities that surpassed all other incarnations? After hearing what I said, Bix was completely stunned. Something like that. It would be an absolute sensation. Sure enough, the channel was already exploding with excitement. Countless constellations were clamoring for Bix to start the stream. Their curiosity about me had reached its peak. Not only could I stand my ground against a regressor, but I also claimed to have the ability to foresee the future. So, Bix hurriedly started the broadcast to please the various main god constellations. Now, please be patient, dear viewers. There was just a server glitch. I didn't turn it off on purpose. Seeing this, I continued to lead him on. How about it? If you do as I say, I guarantee you'll become the king of the monsters. While Bix was weighing the pros and cons, a hidden quest was suddenly triggered. The goal: kill the fish dragon and escape successfully. Failure: death. I knew the time had come to prove my value. So, I went to the monster shop to buy the items needed to complete the quest. I bought 4 spikes and 4 packs of hammer seahorse mucus. However, Bix didn't think I'd make it out alive. He simply said, "Good luck," and vanished. Soon after, stomach acid began to flow from the fish dragon's stomach. I did not dare to waste any more time. I quickly applied the seahorse slime onto the spikes. Then I forcefully drove them into the stomach acid vents of the fish dragon. Soon, 4 whole days flashed by in an instant. By this time, the fish dragon was as dead as it could possibly be. Bix returned to the stomach of the fish dragon. The sight before its eyes left it deeply in awe. "You are truly amazing." This was practically an impossible task to complete. Nobody knew how I managed to pull through. My performance also earned me plenty of sponsorships from the constellations. I collapsed onto the ground in sheer exhaustion. At that moment, Bix looked at the spikes embedded in the stomach wall. I had actually used the immunity of the seahorse slime against the stomach acid to block the digestive fluid vents with spikes and ground the fish dragon to death through sheer endurance. Therefore, Bix broadcasted a small commercial in the streaming room. It finally made up its mind to sign a streaming contract with me. The contract looked decent enough on the surface. It stated that the contract lasted until all tasks were completed or until death, but it completely failed to clearly specify the distribution of streaming revenue. Seeing that I seemed to have noticed the catch in the contract, Bix broke out in a cold sweat. "How about we split the donations from the livestream 50-50? But there was no way I'd believe its lies. I decided to take control and drive up the price. The transaction fees from those constellations are already enough for you to make a fortune. So, I get all the donations, and you get nothing. Plus, you'll give me a signing bonus of 5,000 coins. Otherwise, I'll just go to another channel." Hearing this, Bix completely lost it. But under my threats, it eventually gave in. Then, using the excuse of modifying the attribute window, I had Bix test my skill, the 4th wall. As it turned out, this skill could even block the interference of ghosts. Seeing this, I was beyond excited. No one can see my attribute window. This will make it much easier for me to scam people later. A moment later, I entered the area for the first main scenario. The moment I stepped inside, something rushed toward me. I knew that the game was only now truly beginning. The pollution in this city is severe, and ghosts are running wild everywhere. I had to reach the underground subway station as quickly as possible. But before that, I first went to a supermarket to stock up on supplies. But just as I finished shopping and was preparing to leave, a strange noise suddenly came from behind me. This is a live stream that only gods can watch. The broadcast content concerns the life and death of all humanity. Everyone must complete the main quests to survive. Yet a few individuals manage to gain the favor of the main gods. They become avatars and run amok in this battle royale game. I refuse to walk the ordinary path, however. Not only do I turn down the invitation of the great sage equal to Heaven's Son Wukong, but I also sign a life and death contract with a Dakibi streamer to become the star player on his broadcasting channel. Just moments ago, I scavenged a large amount of supplies from the supermarket and conveniently rescued Sierra along the way. It is not because I am a saint, but because I saw her personal stats. Her overall abilities include level 4 physique, level 4 strength, and the exclusive attribute lurker level 4. Level 7 agility and level 4 magic power are among the few attributes in the novel that can undergo super evolution. Overall evaluation, a lurker with immense potential who can become my capable assistant in clearing the game. Afterward, we ran wildly all the way, and quickly arrived safely at the nearest subway station, where we ran into Marcus and the others. Yet before we could exchange many words, a group of people armed with weapons surrounded us. Howard the glasses wearer immediately turned traitor and tried to drive me out. Right at this moment, the survivor leader, Yunki, stepped forward. "Everyone come over quickly. This brave new member has brought us food." He even sincerely invited me to join their group, claiming that with great power comes great responsibility. He looks refined on the surface, but in reality, he's a total snake. He's a master at guilt-tripping people. Of course, I'm no philanthropist. So I flatly refused. But under his instigation, the crowd began to turn on me. Are you really planning to hoard all the food for yourself? There's not even enough for everyone to share. Yet you only care about your own stomach. But I knew that for these people to survive the first mission, none of them had clean hands. I had no intention of pitying them. Arthur was using this to put me in a difficult position. If I didn't share, I'd be the villain in everyone's eyes. But if I did, I wouldn't have enough for myself, which would force me to join his group, just to survive. Naturally, I wasn't going to let his scheme work. I told them that I was happy to share the food, but each bag would cost 50 coins. Sierra, whom I had saved, was the first to stand up and say she wouldn't take any for free. Then she looked at the others. Dante risked his life to find this food. You're not planning to just get a free ride, are you? It turned out there were two separate organizations in this subway station. The mainstream group, led by Ryan, controlled the food. The other was a marginalized group made up of the elderly, women, and children, just like her. They had to scout the outside just to get a bit of food. After she set an example, others began to agree with her. In less than a day, all the food was gone. However, half of the food had been bought by Ryan's group. Ryan then incited the crowd once more. If you want food, you have to prove your value, he claimed. You can either join the scouting team, or pay a steep price of 200 coins for food. This is a lesson Mr. Dante taught me. Because of his words, the crowd once again turned their hatred toward me. That was when I realized why these people were such idiots. It turned out Ryan possessed the agitation skill. But no matter how much they acted out now, it wouldn't cause any trouble. I had already sold all the food. I wasn't being stupid. I just knew that the second main scenario was about to begin. Once it started, all the food would disappear. Sure enough, a bolt of lightning exploded throughout the subway station. But the one who came out was not Bix. Instead, it was a pitch-black guy. Let us call him Dorian for now. Then he said to everyone, the guy originally in charge of this channel got punished. Now I am in charge. Then Dorian snapped his fingers and instantly confiscated everyone's food. Then he continued speaking. That guy let you live too comfortably before. Now the difficulty is increasing. As soon as he finished speaking, new tasks appeared in front of everyone. A new survival fee item has been added. Everyone must turn in 100 coins as a daily survival fee. Otherwise you will be executed. Seeing this, the corners of my mouth twitched. This is what the game is truly like. In order to survive, we must go outside to hunt. And the traitor Howard was also assigned to our hunting team. We decided to explore along the subway tunnel. And the role of the insect boy Eli came into play at this moment. It turns out his attribute is insect collector. He can find out the surrounding situation by communicating with insects. Soon, Brother Cockroach fed the information back. It is safe within 100 paces ahead. Not long after walking, everyone received a new dungeon quest. Obtain food. Reward: 500 coins for hunting monsters that can be used as food. Meanwhile, the ahead of the tunnel is littered with monster corpses. I look at these corpses thoughtfully. I did not expect that so early in the game. That guy could already handle level 9 monsters like the mole cricket. We used the bones of these monsters to make some simple weapons. Afterward, I had everyone keep only a portion of their living expenses. The rest of the coins were used to improve their physical stats. Next came the real hunt. Marcus takes the lead and launches a mole cricket straight into the air. Beside him, Sierra slashes down the rushing mole cricket with a bone weapon. Everyone is waving their weapons for their own survival. However, this hunting operation seems much easier than I expected. Before long, all these monsters are killed by us. Just as everyone is discussing how to cook these mole crickets, another mole cricket suddenly rushes out from the shadows. It grabbed the traitor Howard and dragged him deep into the tunnel. Seeing this, Nora rushed forward to help. But she was snatched away too. In the blink of an eye, both of them vanished into the darkness. AD. Though I had read all 3,118 chapters of the web novel, its reader count had always remained at just 1. Yet on the very day the novel finally ended, its fictional world suddenly turned into reality, plunging everyone into a brutal survival game filled with terrifying monsters. As the sole reader of this story, I was also the only person who knew how it would all end. To my surprise, however, the very first boss I encountered demanded that I become its mother. Just moments ago, Nora was dragged into the cave by the mole cricket while trying to save the traitor. We decided that Marcus and Sierra would stay behind to hold the position, while Eli and I went into the cave to search. Relying on Eli's multilingual communication skill, we were able to move smoothly through this pitch-black cave. At that moment, Eli turned to me and asked, "You let that mole cricket escape on purpose earlier, didn't you?" I did not hide it and admitted that I had done it deliberately. The reason I did that was because mole crickets have a habit of hoarding treasures. However, we can only find this place by following the tunnel it dug. Besides, my only goal is the item inside. Are you disappointed? Eli simply grabbed my hand instead. I believe Big Brother is not that kind of person. Otherwise, you would not have saved me on the subway. Then he added in a soft voice. Or could it be that you were the main character? Eli's words left me utterly shocked. I never expected him to be much sharper than I imagined. Seeing that I did not reply, Eli did not ask further. He silently continued to lead the way ahead. Soon we arrived in front of the mole cricket cave. Groups of mole crickets crawled on both sides of a treasure box, seeming to guard something. Right at this moment, the noise of Nora and the traitor arguing came from the other side of the cave. It turned out that instead of driving his own luxury car worth tens of millions, the traitor had stolen Nora's bicycle to take the subway. Now that reality had turned out like this, he still blamed her for not giving him a chance to pursue her. Hearing this, I could not listen any longer. I pulled out a sharp spike and threw it toward the traitor. The next second, the spike pierced the rock right above his head. It was not because I missed my throw, but rather to draw out the boss of this dungeon. Countless cracks appeared on the stone wall, and the next second, a cloak-wearing necromancer burst right through the wall. At the same time, we all receive a new task notification. The scenario has been updated. Drive out the Dark Guardian. Seeing this, I hurriedly rescue Nora and the other person. I tell them to quickly back away to a safe distance. Demons are an extremely special breed among monsters. Their strength far exceeds that of other monsters of the same level. Unless it is absolute last resort, I really do not want to fight it. Before I can overthink it, the Dark Guardian launches the first attack. It starts muttering a bunch of gibberish in its mouth. A strong sense of terror instantly washes over my entire body. My exclusive skill, Fourth Wall, is triggered immediately. It offsets most of the fear. Seeing that I can withstand its skill, the Dark Guardian becomes instantly excited. It chatters at me nonstop. At that moment, Nora's translation skill triggers. She immediately tells me, "It is calling you mommy." The Dark Guardian then points at the traitor, asking him to be daddy. Hearing these words, I roll my eyes. Does it have to be this bizarre? Before I can think further, a tentacle suddenly shoots out from behind the Dark Guardian. It instantly pierces the traitor's throat and gives him a quick swab. It turns out it wanted to use its own offspring to be implanted inside other species. Seeing this, I rushed forward and slashed the tentacle apart with a bone knife. The Dark Guardian, feeling the pain, instantly entered a berserk state. It went crazy, waving 7 or 8 tentacles to whip at me. My weapon also shattered under its continuous attacks. I could only keep dodging. This was originally a battle with 0 chance of winning. Fortunately, I had a backup plan. I hurriedly shouted up at the sky, "Dakibi, you are watching, right? Get out here." Hearing this, Dorian was startled. "How did you know I was watching?" I did not waste any words. I directly told him to hurry up and give me Bix's parcel. Who would have thought this guy would say that was Bix's business, and not his concern? This immediately provoked dissatisfaction from the Constellations in the audience seating. "Since you took over Bix's job, you must take responsibility to the end." Seeing the screen full of dissatisfaction, Dorian broke out in cold sweat. He had no choice but to deliver the parcel into my hands. This was what I got after killing the fish dragon and obtaining its core, then having Bix traded at the Dakibi auction house. A flash of lightning burst open in my palm, and a sword named Broken Faith appeared in my hand. This drew about a mockery from Dorian. Can a crappy sword like that even be used for fighting? What it did not know, however, was that I had just purchased a skill called Pure Aura from Dorian. An aura quickly condensed along the broken edge of the blade. The Broken Faith seemed to respond to the magic, too. A burst of aura erupted around the sword. Blade of Faith activated. This seemingly ordinary broken sword actually possessed the power to slay demons. Just the sheer pressure erupting from it was enough to send the demon screaming in terror. Yet despite wielding such a divine weapon, I was still no match for the demon in front of me. In this novel's world, simply owning a powerful weapon does not make you a master swordsman. Plus, I had no sponsor Constellation backing me up. Just trying to control this sword required an immense amount of effort. Even so, I was the sole reader of this novel world, so a reader would just have to fight like a reader. I immediately activated my second bookmark, belonging to Marcus, allowing me to use his signature skill, Weapon Mastery. With a sudden dash, I charged at the Dark Guardian once more. Boosted by the skill, every swing of my divine weapon severed another one of the Guardian's tentacles. My final strike came dangerously close to cutting it entirely in half. That spectacle left all the Constellations watching the broadcast wide-eyed. To think he could pull this off so early in the scenario. Beat the dungeon boss to near death. They all tipped me 100 coins in response. Dorian was completely dumbfounded by this scene. Where on earth did Bix find such an overpowered kid for his channel? At that moment, I told Dorian to hurry up and distribute the quest rewards. Instead of yapping away, Dorian asked curiously, "Are you really not planning to kill this Guardian? This guy is worth at least 7,000 coins." I replied that I am someone who never takes lives. It is not because I am foolish, but because I know that in this world, all demons are subordinates of the demon gods. Once you kill it, you will face the endless pursuit of the demon god. Yet just then, that traitor picked up a bone knife and stabbed the guardian on the ground to death. Then he laughed uproariously. Dante, you fool, you never saw this coming. Now I can grow stronger too. Just as he was feeling proud of his own cleverness, a voice resounded across the sky. The Dark Guardian has been killed. The demon god of wrath and lust has detected the presence of the killer. Howard will be hunted by the demon god forever and will suffer a terrifying curse from the demon god. The curse will turn whatever the killer fears most into reality. Hearing this, Eli looked at me with eyes full of admiration. You're amazing, big brother. Afterward, we approached the treasure chest. Inside were 3 items. A bracelet that can restore mana, an old iron shield, and a magic stove for cooking food. With these, our dungeon mission was considered a complete success. However, the real treasure here was the chest itself. As long as you put a low-grade item inside, a high-grade item will definitely appear. As I placed the broken conviction into the chest, a purple light exploded from within, and the broken sword was restored to its original form. The Holy Blade of Conviction grants the user a 2-level boost to their physical ability and strength. With this sword, slaying monsters will be much easier. Then, we prepared to head back to the shelter. But Eli told everyone that there were no more insects nearby. In this pitch-black cave, without insects to lead the way, we'd not only be prone to getting lost, but also vulnerable to monster ambushes. While we were discussing a plan, someone suddenly closed their eyes and began chanting something. Meanwhile, on the ground above, a massive mantis began walking toward the cave as if it had been summoned. Looking at the shaking cave, I knew he was trying to summon a king-class species from the surface, so I quickly stopped him. It is not the right time yet. Otherwise, we would all be buried alive here. We just need to wait until small insects appear around us before setting off. Right at that moment, Nora stepped forward and said, I can lead everyone back. It turned out she had the skill to find paths using a thread, which could connect the distance between the start and the finish. With her help, we quickly returned to the subway tracks. Then a burst of golden light suddenly exploded before everyone. Hello everyone, did you miss me? After finishing his stint in solitary confinement, Bix rushed back to check on his channel. Soon we arrived back at the platform, and I gave the shield I acquired to Marcus, raising our team tank defense to another level, while my action also made Marcus show a faint sense of loyalty toward me. At this point, there were less than 20 minutes left before the survival fee was due, and many people began to grow restless because they lacked enough coins. Right at that moment, Howard walked into the crowd and activated his agitation skill. Mr. Dante must be the person here with the most gold coins. Do you really not plan to help everyone? With just a few simple words, Ray made me the target of everyone's hatred once again. But at this moment, while passing through the previous 2 stations, kneeling in devout prayer, taking a short break. A room? Something that can be summarized simply. The restroom. Well, you guys be careful. The one at Chungyuro is. Perhaps one of the 10 evils is currently in control among them. They were talking about rooms. 8 days. It was something they did unilaterally. They simply harbored expectations of Victor's overwhelming martial prowess. 1,500 points. Faced with the man's threat toward Eli, what should our Dante do? He handed Sierra, whom he had been carrying on his back, over to Nora. Nora, please take care of Sierra for a moment. Dante walked up behind Eli. The man opposite them looked at Eli and let out an "Oh. So you have a guardian." The man stood up and said to Dante, then as his guardian, "Why do you not pay the 500 points for him instead?" Hearing the man's words, Dante thought to himself, just for stepping on the ground, it costs 500 points. This is outright robbery. The 10 evils. Although the personnel and rankings change depending on Victor's regressions, these 10 remain the main villains in ways of survival. Bruno, the armed lord of Chungyuro, is one of those 10 evils. Dante asks the man in front of him, "Why are you collecting our points? Isn't Chungyuro Station a public facility?" The man laughs out loud and says, "It certainly was until 8 days ago." The man's expression instantly turns cold as he tells Dante, "But it is not anymore." Hearing what the man has to say, Dante calmly replies, "Fine, I will pay." Then he adds, "But I will hand them over in person." Taken aback, the man asks, "What did you say?" Dante looks at him and replies, "Because you are not Bruno." Dante uses his inspection skill to check the man's information. Age, 49. Attribute, landlord. He is 49 years old, and his sponsor is the Rat Monarch. His stats show agility level 9 and magic power level 7. Dante checks the system interface and thinks to himself that these guys were originally landlords controlling the Chungyuro area, but now they are just lackeys following Bruno. Dante puts his hand to his mouth and calls out with a questioning tone, "Mr. Bruno, where on earth are you?" Just as his voice trails off, the surrounding people snap to their senses and shout, "What the hell do you mean by that, you bastard?" Without giving them any explanation, Dante steps into the red zone and says, "Mr. Bruno, come out and assess the penalty fee." Suddenly, an icy system voice rings out. "You have violated private property." 4 turret guns creak as they simultaneously swivel around, pointing their barrels straight at Dante, as if he does not even see the turrets. He keeps walking forward without stopping, and continually calls out the other man his name, "Mr. Bruno." At that moment, a command to stop comes from behind him, interrupting Dante. The person behind him says in an indifferent tone, "If you dare take one more step closer, I will kill you right now." Hearing that threat, Dante immediately turned around to see a bald man sitting with his legs crossed. He was holding a book titled 7 Foods for a Fishing Life. Flipping through the pages, he spoke up, a new face. "You've got some nerve." Dante figured this person must be Bruno, the lord of the armed zone. Looking completely relaxed, Dante replied, "It is already humiliating enough to pay the fee. I do not need to care about anyone's expression either." Bruno let out a surprised sound. At that moment, the system notification appeared. "Bruno has taken an interest in you." Slapping his book down with a thud, Bruno put on his hat and said, "Kid, you have a sharp tongue, but do not get ahead of yourself in my territory." While Bruno was talking, Dante used his omniscient reader viewpoint skill to check his information. Bruno was 48 years old, possessing defensive master skills and private territory. His star relic was the armed zone, and both abilities complemented each other. The growth package system advised trying not to make an enemy of him. Dante was startled as he stared at the system panel. Dante is amazed that he already possesses 2 attributes, and his magic power has reached level 19. To reach this level, he can truly secure a foothold among the wicked. Just then, Bruno steps forward. "What are you doing here? I can see you are not here just to look around." Noticing Dante's sharp gaze, Bruno considers his options. Should he try to negotiate or subdue him immediately? Dante's mind races with calculations. "Bruno, I advise you. You had better not try anything reckless here. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee your safety." Hearing these words from Bruno, Dante tightens his grip on the long sword in his hand. Meanwhile, in the crowd, Bruno's thugs have already surrounded the others. Dante silently looks at the surrounded group, then raises his hands with a smile and smooths things over. "Let us not get so worked up. Isn't this just a visitor looking for a host? Isn't that obvious?" Bruno asks if he wants to rent a room. Dante replies, "Yes, please, Mr. Bruno. Allow me and my companions to stay in your green zone." Upon hearing Dante's request, Bruno refused, saying, "No, our alliance doesn't accept outsiders. However, if you're willing to pay 500 points per person every day, I might consider it." Dante thought to himself that this guy was even more outrageous than Bix. Then, maintaining a calm expression, he continued, "That might be difficult, but I can offer some information in exchange." Bruno crossed his arms and asked playfully, "What kind of information?" Dante replied, "It's information regarding Victor." Hearing this, Bruno was instantly shocked. The henchmen surrounding Dante all chimed in. "Isn't Victor the guy who caused trouble not long ago?" One of the henchmen nearby asked, "Hey, what's your relationship with him?" One of the henchmen warned Bruno, "Mr. Bruno, this kid is a bit suspicious." Observing their reactions, Dante thought to himself, "They really do have something against Victor. They really do react to Victor." According to the plan, the Landlord Alliance and Victor should be locked in a bloody battle right now. Where on earth is that guy? With a gloomy look, Bruno glared at Dante and said, "What kind of relationship do you have with Victor anyway?" Dante replied with a confident tone, "We are partners who share life and death, but not quite together." Dante's strange phrasing left Bruno completely confused and baffled. "You mean you share life and death, right?" Dante casually explained. "Anyway, our relationship is very close. If you do not believe me, well, it is not going to cause you any loss either." At that moment, Bruno activated his skill, cost calculation. Countless numbers materialized and floated around his body. Then he asked, "How could there be no loss? Who can guarantee you are not a liar? Do not underestimate my life experience. Based on my background, guys who look like you always end up running away in the end." Hearing what Bruno had to say, cold sweat slowly began to roll down Dante's forehead. Dante cursed to himself as he realized the guy actually nailed it. Why did he feel a little hard done by? Dante put on an indifferent act. "Fine then. If you do not believe me, there is nothing I can do. The one losing out in the end will be you anyway." After dropping those words, Dante turned around without the slightest hesitation and prepared to leave. That was when Bruno called out, "Wait a minute." He suddenly stopped Dante in his tracks. Dante thought to himself, "I knew it. He would not let it go that easily." Bruno spoke up in an icy cold voice. "You have not handed over your penalty fee yet. Where do you think you are running off to?" It turned out what he could not let go of was the points. That was a whole lot of points to give up. Dante played dumb and asked, "How much was it again?" "Was it 100 points?" Bruno informed him. Dante winced as if it physically hurt him, saying that was way too much. Bruno raised his hand and said, "Then you have no right to be my visitor." He suddenly shouted, "Die." As soon as he finished speaking, the turret locked onto Dante with red light gathering. Nora supported Sierra, leaned forward, and called out to Dante. Dante pushed Eli by the shoulder and told him, "Run quickly into the crowd." With a loud roar, the spot where Dante was standing exploded instantly. Flames lit up the surroundings. Dante covered his face with his hand, and when he opened his eyes, he was surprised to find that the person standing in front of him was none other than Marcus, blocking the turret attack with a shield. Marcus turned his head and told Dante, "Dante, my shield cannot hold out much longer." Dante looked at the surrounding situation and analyzed that Sierra had not woken up yet. If they fought against them right now, someone on their side would definitely die here. Since that was the case, he certainly could not take a losing fight here. Dante walked up to Bruno and said, "Mr. Bruno, please wait dash." Hearing Dante's words, Bruno asked, "What are you up to again?" Dante advised him, "It is better for you not to fight us right now." Bruno replied, "Why is that?" "Because if you try to fight us now, you will die here." Just then, a voice came from outside the crowd. Everyone looked over at once. "Master, that is the guy?" Bruno looked grimly at the people opposite and thought, "Damn it. This guy is the one impersonating Master's partner." At this moment, the two slowly walked toward the crowd. Victor spotted Dante standing there right away, and his heart was instantly shaken. Dante waved and greeted him. "Hey, Victor." Dante thought to himself, "I never expected I would actually be this happy to see this damn regressor." At that moment, the system prompt activated their exclusive skill. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint Stage 2 unlocked. Bruno and Zoe were so shocked that they kept turning their heads back and forth between Dante and Victor. Dante smiled and asked, "Victor, have you been well lately? Your complexion looks pretty good." Victor was also immensely shocked inside. "These people do not believe I am your companion. Could you tell them that for me?" I know Victor very well. Though he kills without blinking an eye, he always keeps his promises. Right at that moment, a small group of Constellations turned their attention to Victor, waiting to see how he would respond. The Judge of Fire was also observing him, at the same time, testing Victor's credibility. With so many Constellations watching him now, Victor opened his mouth to say a single word before Dante interrupted him, saying, "That is right. if you can get them to agree. It would be even better if we could use the restroom. Hearing what Dante said, everyone instantly turned to look at Victor, only to see Victor slowly draw the sword from his waist, as a blue light suddenly emanated from the blade, radiating a chilling aura. Choose wisely, right? To put it simply, Victor did not call me his companion. It does not matter. It does not matter to me at all. Exclusive skill book character list activated. There is an overwhelming amount of information related to this person. The book character list skill has changed to summary view. During the second and third regressions. Exclusive skills, Seiyonai level 8, Melee Combat level 8. Group Control level 5, Deduction level 5. Cooking level 10. Overall stats, Physique level 24, Power level 24, Agility level 25, Magic Power level 23. His growth rate seems even faster than that of the third regression. This guy is only. Do not look at me like that, my friend. What? Why? But since. Damn it. I am just an ordinary reader. Everything. This guy is really cautious. Think whatever you want. It is for the upcoming quest, right? You do not need the people following him at all. What? If you do not make a move right now, most people in Chungyuro. Victor is using Protective Aura level 5. The Constellation Bald General hopes the people will start an uprising. The Constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is curious about what you are thinking. The Constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband feels satisfied and sponsors 100 coins. Did Victor sound a bit timid just now? How should we deal with Bruno and his group? It is truly a headache. We need Bruno's help. If we cannot get his help, the Constellations of the Absolute Good faction stay silent in response to Sierra's request. Judgment Time is an immensely powerful buff skill. What does that mean? What way? Still, he probably will not leave that place easily. Did he hide some treasure in that ground? And why is he just staying there without moving? 1 hour until the third main scenario activates. Failure consequence. Marcus looks at the task in astonishment. Bix spreads his hands and warns. The rules are simple. Just occupy a green zone before anyone else. Of course, you can also snatch other people's zones. You had better hurry though. Because if midnight arrives and you still have not managed to occupy a green zone, you will experience something terrifying. Hearing what Bix says, the people around start frantically searching and fighting for green zones. Bix laughs heartily. Good luck, everyone. Dante and the others watched the scene unfolding before them with tension. They saw the crowd relentlessly beating and killing one another. Just die? I'm not doing this because I have a grudge against you. I'm just doing it to survive. Nora asked nervously. Do we have to fight each other like that too? Dante replied that there was no need for that. We just need to find a room that can accommodate several people. The green zones come in many different sizes. From places that can only hold one person, to areas like Bruno's territory, which is large enough for 70 people. Dante suggested that Marcus and Nora pair up. Sierra would take Eli with her. Sierra asked, what about you, Dante? Dante replied, I'll act on my own. Dante then warned them, if we haven't found a room 20 minutes before the scenario starts, gather back here. Hearing Dante's words, they all nodded in agreement. Dante watched them leave. He suspected that his companions would have a hard time finding a room. At that moment, Dante took out his phone. Looking at the novel's content on his phone, he noticed that they really wouldn't be able to find a room. Actually, his companions only had one real option. Would they choose to survive? By killing whoever was already occupying the rooms? At that moment, the system announced 30 minutes. Until the mission began, leaving Dante in silence. He looked at his phone as a chime signaled a message from Bix. Hey, punk. What do you think you are doing? The Constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is baffled by your current actions. Dante only then realized. If the Constellations saw the contents of the novel, it would be a huge problem. Why on earth did you open a blank memo? Because of what you are doing right now. The Constellations are about to go crazy with frustration. Dante looked confusedly at the blank memo. Dante asked, are you talking about this? Bix replied, I must be out of my mind to have signed a contract with a guy like you. Yeah, you opened up that. Are you trying to study some kind of tactical strategy? He added, do you really want to die like that? If this keeps up, he is going to get himself killed. He signed a contract. Still, if the Constellations could see this, they would have said something by now. Even Bix, who holds the highest authority in this system, would have reacted. What kind of trick is this? What exactly is going on here? Suddenly, a sharp cry interrupts his thoughts. Dante turns around to look. With a loud crash, someone collapses heavily to the ground. A series of system notifications buzz to life. A man with a terrified expression comes into view. In his hand, he grips a baseball bat still dripping with fresh blood. At his feet lies the person who fought him for the room, beaten to death with merciless blows from that bat. The man stammers in terror, begging him not to come any closer. Dante raises a hand and tells him not to worry. I am not here to take your spot. Just then, a voice came from behind Dante. Are you relaxing, mister? It looks like you have a death wish. Hearing that, Dante raised both hands and turned around. Who is speaking with such bad manners? You do not look like you are in any rush yourself. The person behind him was none other than Zoe. Zoe swung her blade and said, No one dares to touch my room, because they know if they do, they die. Hearing Zoe, Dante thought to himself, True, given your current talent, only Victor or the Landlord Alliance could possibly handle you. Zoe spoke again, saying she hoped he would not die, as his impudence toward her master earlier left a deep impression. Dante replied not to worry, because he was not going to die. Besides, failing to find a room did not necessarily mean certain death. Zoe was taken aback, asking if he intended to fight a monster, and whether he was as strong as her master. Right then, Victor appeared beside them and told Zoe to hurry back to her room. Zoe reacted in surprise, realizing Victor was her master, and then turned to ask Dante, Are you planning to brawl with the monsters? Afterward, you're going to die. Your companions will too. Dante smiled and shrugged. We will see about that. Victor looked at Dante, said nothing, and turned to walk away. His life was truly speechless. Hearing those words, Dante turned his head to look. It was the others who had failed to find a room. Sierra said angrily, It costs 2,000 coins to stay for just one night? Are you kidding me? I really want to slice them up into sashimi. Nora said helplessly, We could not find any rooms. Marcus asked in a low voice, Did you already know about this? At this moment, a man standing inside the green zone watched the group, trembling in fear. Did you find anything, Dante? Marcus looked toward the person standing in the zone. The man nervously turned his head to avoid his gaze. At that moment, Dante held up 2 fingers. Right now, we have 2 ways to do this. Hearing that there were 2 methods, the others thought to themselves, There are actually 2? Listening to Dante, none of their expressions looked very good. Sierra said, Then let us go with the first method. Marcus added, If we want to make sure everyone survives, the first method is definitely better. Eli nodded in agreement. Nora fell somewhat silent, and then asked, May I ask what the other method is first? The first method is for a few of us to go up to the second floor, as Dante pointed toward the green zone across from them. The room they currently occupied happened to hold 5 people. Dante said, To be honest, all 5 of us do not even need to make a move. Just then, someone interrupted, Wait. Dante, are you trying to steal rooms? Dante replied, Kill them and take the room. That is the first option. The others looked at Dante in shock. Eli eagerly spoke up. If you say we should do that, brother, then I can do it. I'm not afraid. Let me do it. Nora hurriedly shouted. No, Eli. Nora grabbed his arm to stop him. Sierra stepped forward and said to Dante, Do you think we didn't know about this option? Which is why we didn't do it. Sierra shouted at Dante, beating her chest, I've killed people before. I killed them of my own will. And I don't regret it. But just because I've done it, doesn't mean I like killing people. I don't want to become a monster. Sierra stared intently at Dante. Then Marcus spoke up and asked, Dante, I want to know what the second option is. Dante looked at them, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. I understand your thoughts now. Then let us choose the second option. Sierra smiled as she looked at Dante. She walked over and patted him on the shoulder. I knew it would be like this. Since we were all going to choose the second option anyway, why did you bother testing us? Dante replied that he was not trying to test them. Ouch, stop hitting me, it hurts so much. At that moment, Dante looked at Eli and said, No matter what choice you make. Dante placed his hand on Eli's head and said he would respect their decision. Since we have chosen the second option, from now on you must unconditionally follow my orders. Even if you think what I say sounds absurd, you must trust and follow me. If even a single one of you doubts me, all of us will die. Then a system announcement sounded. There are 5 minutes left until the mission starts. Over at the Chungyuro subway tunnel, monsters will likely spawn over there and flood into the subway station. They are going to sweep through the entire line 3. We need to go deeper underground, layer by layer. Are we going to fight the monsters right here? No, we cannot do it here. If we fight here, all of us will die. We must split up for this battle. Even if it sounds unbelievable to you guys, please trust my words. The third main scenario has been activated. Suddenly, a red light appears. Before Dante can finish his warning about the monsters appearing, countless monsters emerge from within the red light. Savage roars echo from their jaws as they stare at the monsters before them. Their hearts pound wildly in panic. Dante shouts now and immediately runs toward the spot where the creatures are appearing. Carrying Eli on his back, Dante gives instructions. Monsters keep pouring out from the red light. Hearing Dante's words without a moment of hesitation, they charge straight at the monsters. They dash forward without any hesitation. Nora, running along, notices something on her left. Looking to the side, she sees a green zone appearing on the wall. Meanwhile, the monsters rush frantically toward the three of them. Nora reached out and slapped the green zone. At that same moment, the monster's sharp claws lunged at the group. Just as the monsters were about to grab them, Nora's hand slammed hard against the wall. A notification announced that a hidden function had been activated, and the hidden space was now open. Once they touched the green zone, a green light erupted from the area. When the monster's claws hit that light, they were instantly torn to shreds. With the danger gone, Nora turned around. Since the monsters couldn't reach the two people in the green zone, they turned and charged at Marcus instead. Just as Marcus fought back with all his might. While Marcus was fighting for his life, a golden thread shot from Nora's hand, wrapped around his waist, and Nora and Sierra pulled him back. Once the green zone showed it was full and safe, the group looked over at Dante. They saw Dante carrying Eli on his back, running in the opposite direction. These hidden green zones only appear after the mission begins, activating on specific walls. Dante looked back and saw the new green zone was actually on the wall. Damn it. Thinking about it, only humans would have assumed the green zone was a room. The monsters behind them were now less than a meter away from Dante and Eli. Eli's weapon smashed hard onto the monster's head. Without a word, the two shared a silent understanding and attacked the charging monsters. While attacking, Dante remembered there were only two hidden green zones at exit or on the Line 3 platform, and the second one had to be nearby. Dante and Eli charged forward and spotted the green zone, while the people inside also saw them. The people in the green zone suddenly grew nervous. The surrounding monsters had already completely surrounded Dante and Eli. Dante thought to himself, damn it. To be honest, I really want to get to that man's green zone right now. A burst of laughter rang out. Is this place still interesting? Then today, just like yesterday, let's add some penalties. The speaker was Bix, who snapped his fingers. A notification sounded, announcing a new task penalty. Existing parts of the green zone are about to expire. The man standing in the green zone looked up at the text slowly disappearing above his head. Without giving him any time to react, the surrounding monsters rushed in and tore him to pieces. Smelling the blood, the monsters swarmed over the man. Dante drew his longsword and remarked that although it was only for one day, Victor had actually managed to survive among these monsters until dawn. Dante realized that Victor really was a monster too. After devouring the man, the monsters turned around and began attacking Dante. Dante blocked their attacks and began slashing away. He wondered, if I converted all my points into stats, could I become like Victor? To be honest, I don't have that kind of confidence. Then Eli suddenly spoke up. Brother, it's okay if you leave me here and go on your own. Hearing what Eli said, Dante told him not to talk to him right now. He was too busy, but then he suddenly snapped back to reality. Glancing sideways, he blocked a monster attack and asked what Eli meant. Eli swung his weapon and replied, I actually do not know you very well, big brother. Why are you helping me and the others? You would probably survive much better on your own. Hearing this, Dante looked down at Eli and thought to himself, to be honest, I cannot explain it either. Why am I going this far for everyone? Meanwhile, on the other side, the others worried if Dante and Eli were okay. Monsters were blocking their view, so they could not see a thing. But there is one thing I can make clear. Dante gripped his sword tight and answered Eli. You are right. Dante slashed his longsword dozens of times in a flash, cutting down the surrounding monsters one after another. After wiping them out, he walked over behind Eli and said, completing quests alone, surviving by myself, living a comfortable life. That might actually be much easier. However, Dante picked Eli up in his arms and continued. I know a novel where the protagonist lived exactly like that. But in the end, that guy still met a miserable end. Hearing Dante, Eli looks a bit confused and stares blankly at him. Dante thinks to himself that he was never cut out to be the protagonist. He probably could never be a hero or a savior either. However, he refuses to let Eli die, at least not today. Dante holds Eli tight, pushes off powerfully with his left leg, and charges forward. He breaks through the first wave of monsters. A second wave quickly closes in to surround them. After Dante barely manages to block a few blows, a monster's claw gashes the inner side of his thigh. He narrowly dodges another sneak attack from behind. The relentless monsters keep charging straight at him. Spotting a green glow ahead, Dante calls out, right there, we just need to go a little further. He springs forward on his toes and leaps high into the air. As he looks ahead, he freezes in shock. The zone is already occupied by someone else. The person standing inside is none other than Victor. Victor is leaning against the wall, with the corpses of monsters piled up all around him. At that moment, Victor notices the two of them. Dante rushes past the remaining monsters, stops 3 meters away from Victor, and shouts, "Hey, can you make some room?" Hearing that, Victor replies, "Could you not survive even without coming in here? That proposal is rather difficult for me. I am too tired today to budge." Hearing that, Dante feels veins bulging on his forehead and thinks to himself, "Damn it, why is there such a guy? How could Victor, on his third regression, possibly know about this place?" Because in the novel, his first use of a hidden area happened during his fourth regression, so I did not worry about this problem at all. At that moment, Dante looks at Eli, who is panting heavily. Victor glances at Dante. Dante says to Victor, "Then at least take in the child." Hearing Dante's words, Eli is somewhat surprised as well. Victor replies, "A child?" Just as he says that, a shelter message rings out, indicating the area is full. Eli gets up and tries to rush out, but Victor grabs him tightly and says, "Wait a moment, kid." After Dante blocks a giant claw, a message comes through. The Constellation bald militia leader closes his eyes. The Constellation judge of fire like a demon looks at you with sympathetic eyes. At that moment, an icy voice comes from behind Dante. "Did I not say you would die?" The speaker is none other than Victor, looking at Dante leisurely. Dante tilts his head with a slight smile and replies, "I am not going to die." Dozens of monsters roar and charge toward Dante. A bear-like monster suddenly tackles Dante to the ground. After pinning Dante down tightly, countless surrounding monsters rush in to attack him. At that moment, Eli screams loudly for his brother. An omniscient reader, after Dante makes sure Eli enters the green zone, he finds himself plunging into grave danger. Victor recalls Dante's earlier actions, wondering to himself, right before that punk got swallowed up by the monsters, what on earth was that golden item he was clutching in his hand and then threw into his mouth? Dante thinks to himself, did that brat figure it out? Even if you know this method, you definitely cannot use it. Clenching his teeth hard, Dante fiercely bites down and shatters 2 crystals. Looking from the outside now, right at the center where he is surrounded, a long series of hissing sounds echoes out. Suddenly, from the gaps between the crowded monsters, blue mist begins to drift upward. At this point, Victor and Eli are completely dumbfounded by the sight before them. A prompt appears stating that the phantom prison has been activated. A chime rings out announcing that you have become a specter species. Dante abruptly opens his eyes and slowly pushes himself up, holding his head as he mutters, "My head." Then he looks to the side and freezes in shock. Dante looks at the scene before him in confusion. At that moment, a notification sounds. Because of your excessive immersion, the effect of the fourth wall is temporarily weakening. Dante feels a massive shock in his heart. He looks at the scene and thinks to himself that this cannot be happening. If it is this memory, things are going to get troublesome. He must not remember this memory. The surrounding scenery suddenly turns entirely white. Dante holds his forehead as a buzzing sound echoes endlessly in his head. Damn this psychological trauma. I also have memories I would rather not recall. This is the demonic mind spirit stone obtained on the way to Chunguro Station. As long as you absorb this item, you can temporarily turn into a ghost species and avoid being discovered by monsters. However, using this method will cause the user's psychological trauma to spiral out of control. Just like this. That is why I did not want to use this method. The skill fourth wall is truly powerful. It is precisely because the person using this method is me that the side effects disappeared so quickly. If anyone else had used this method, they might have gone crazy instantly. Dante looked at his status panel. Now he just needed to wait for the fourth wall to recover its effect. Right then, someone from behind called out to Victor. Standing behind him was a tall woman with bright blonde hair. She asked if he was Victor. Dante turned around and looked at her in confusion. After seeing Dante's face, the woman said that he was not Victor after all. Dante wondered what was going on. Had some psychological trauma appeared again? The woman looked at Dante and asked if he was Korean. Dante was puzzled, wondering why. He had not heard her approach. Besides, she was a foreign woman with blonde hair. The woman's left eye flashed with a red light, as she demanded to know who he was. Without answering, Dante instantly activated the skill character list. A prompt sounded. Anna is currently using the skill mental barrier. Character list bypassed the mental barrier. Due to the massive amount of information about this person, the skill view is changed to a summary. With a chime, a character panel popped up showing Anna's stats. Her attributes included Prophet, Savior, Future Sight, and Past Insight. Clairvoyance, Advanced Weapon, Mental Barrier. Lie Detection, Gaze of the Great Demon. Dante looked at the panel and sighed. As expected, it's her. Why did she have to appear right now? She can ignore spatial constraints and freely enter the consciousness of others. She is a character from Ways of Survival. She can see the future and wants to use those visions to plan the world. Dante called out her name, Prophet Anna Calvert. Anna asked, "How do you know who I am?" Dante explained, Because I'm a prophet too. Just then, Anna activated her lie detection skill. Confirmed, you are lying. Dante felt awkward, realizing that this trick wouldn't work against a real prophet. After seeing through the lie, Anna asked again, tell me the truth. Who exactly are you? Dante thought to himself, I think I know what's happening. It must be because the effect of the fourth wall has temporarily weakened, allowing her to sense my existence. If the fourth wall is the kind of skill I imagine it to be. Alright, what should I do now? Though I am a bit disappointed. Dante asks Anna, did you really come here? Simply because you did not know who I was. Hearing this, Anna looks confused and replies, what are you talking about? Dante points to his eyes and answers, did you not put the fish dragon river I gave you to good use? You must have used the magic of the fish dragon river to graft the great demon's eyes. Shocked, Anna asks, could you be the one? Just who are you anyway? The great demon's eyes. The girl in front of me received a sponsorship item, costing a staggering 1 million coins. She is truly someone born with a diamond spoon in her mouth. How enviable. At that moment, Anna notices her feet are gradually disappearing and exclaims, how can this be? Dante provides a hint. The effect of your fourth wall is gradually recovering. By now, Anna's entire body is slowly fading away. Anna looks panicked and bewildered. Anna asks why she cannot see anything anymore. Dante just smiles and waves, saying, we will meet again. Wait for me on the other side of the continent. A prompt appears stating that the fourth wall has fully recovered. After watching Anna completely disappear, Dante collapses to the ground. A notification reports that the skill effect has gained immunity against the phantom prison. Dante mutters that this is too much. Lying on the ground, Dante complains that his condition was already poor, and he had to run into Anna right at this moment. Running into that woman is just terrible luck. How much time has actually passed now? And how are the companions doing? Could they still be in the middle of the third scenario? What if there are still disaster monsters wandering around? What should he do? Will Victor end up killing Eli? If he actually does that, Dante swears he will finish him off. Suddenly, a series of urgent voices calls out to wake Dante up. Dante abruptly opens his eyes and looks at the anxious people standing before him. Dante gets up and asks how the scenario went. Nora replies that it is already over. Dante did it. They actually pulled it off. Dante looks over to the side. The surroundings are full of fresh blood and several corpses. Looking at the scene before him, Dante says, it is still too early for us to celebrate. Sierra asks in confusion why that is. Because we have only survived 3 days so far. Yesterday was only the third day, and it was already this tough. Marcus watches Dante try to stand up and hastily says to him, Dante, you cannot do that. You fought the whole night last night and did not get a single bit of sleep, did you? Dante looks at Marcus and asks what time it is. Marcus looks at his watch and replies that it is 8:30 in the morning. It has only been about 30 minutes since the scenario ended. Dante feels relieved that too much time has not passed. At this moment, Dante asks where Eli is. The others look in Eli's direction at the same time. Sierra says that Eli is chatting with Victor. Dante looks ahead, wondering what is going on. Why would that guy Victor be talking to Eli? Victor asks Eli when he finished his task. Eli replies that it was not long ago, even though it was not there before. Dante thinks to himself that damn it. I cannot hear what they are saying. Is it because of when he used the Sage's Eye earlier? The person who surprised him was Eli. At that moment, Victor asked Eli, are you really not coming with me? Eli gave a firm and resolute reply. Yes, and Victor earnestly tried to persuade him further. Instead of following that guy, you will grow stronger much faster with me. Hearing Victor's advice, he firmly declined. I know, but I am still not going with you. Dante checked their conversation through his skill, then sighed regretfully that he was truly a foolish kid. Victor looked at Dante lying on the ground, remarking that he was a lucky bastard. This kid might actually be of use later on, so I will let him live a little longer. Dante read Victor's thoughts and cursed mentally. Damn it, I want to take a swipe at him right now, but I do not have any strength left. Just then, Eli turned around and spotted Dante waking up. Eli quickly ran toward Dante, calling out to Dante as Victor watched. Seeing Eli run back to Dante, Victor turned and walked away. Victor thought to himself that he had no time to waste here, as he still needed to finish today's clearance. Eli happily threw himself right into Dante's arms. At that moment, using his skill to check, seeing what Victor was thinking, Dante wondered what kind of scenario he was trying to clear. With a weary expression, he thought that he really needed to rest. Zoe turned her head around, only to see Eli suddenly pounce on Dante and knock him down. The others rushed over, asking Dante if he was all right. Eli told them to just let Dante get some sleep. Zoe told Eli to get down right now. Eli replied that he refused to get off. The third day of the main scenario was finally over. Then a notification sound echoed out. Bix shouted impatiently, "Hey kid, how much longer are you planning to sleep?" Hearing Bix yelling at him, Dante slowly opened his eyes. Sierra saw Dante wake up and greeted him. You are finally awake. Dante realized his head was resting on Marcus's lap. Sierra laughed and teased Dante, asking how it felt to use Marcus's lap as a pillow. At that moment, Marcus was still fast asleep. He murmured in a faint voice, sleep-talking, about this morning's roll call, which required the on-duty soldier to handle personally. Dante looked up at Marcus and thought, no wonder the pillow felt a bit strange. It smelled like military-issue pillowcases. Bix laughed and said, you are finally awake. Well then, accept this. Dante stood up, stretched his neck, and muttered, ouch, my neck. I think I slept on it wrong. A notification chimed, stating that the Constellations had sponsored him with 1,800 coins. Dante complained mentally. Those bastards. They actually took advantage of my sleep to peek into my past. Notifications continued to pour in. For surviving the night in Chungnuro without a green zone. You are the second person in Chungnuro Station to achieve the Endless Night feat. You receive 1,000 coins as an achievement reward. Your current balance is 22,650 coins. Dante carefully settled Eli back down on his lap and thought, excellent. This finally hits my target amount. Sierra yawned and asked, what should we do today? Are we going to look for a green zone like yesterday? Hearing Sierra, Dante explained, no. Yesterday's method can only be used. The survival guide did not specify where the green zone would appear on the fourth day. Eli was still muttering in his sleep, calling out for Dante. Dante told Sierra that they needed to completely finish the third scenario today. Hearing this, Sierra asked in surprise, what did you say? How are we supposed to finish it? Dante explained to her. First, we need to drag the landlord of this place out. Just then, Marcus opened his eyes and woke up, yawning. He propped himself up and said he accidentally fell asleep. Then he looked at Dante and asked, did you get some rest? Hearing Marcus, Dante replied, yeah, I am holding up. Dante then added, by the way, you were talking in your sleep just now. Marcus was stunned upon hearing that. Scratching his head, he explained, it is because I have some psychological trauma from my time in the military. Dante said with some surprise, from your time in the military? Marcus, were you not in the military academy? Marcus explains to Dante, I only made it to corporal. I transferred into the military academy later. Dante replies after hearing this, I heard that people in your situation are quite rare. You must be well suited for the army. Marcus laughs awkwardly and rubs the back of his head. Dante thinks to himself, of course, nobody stays in the military just because they are suited for it. As for Marcus and his military background, the original novel never went into specific detail, so I am not entirely clear about it. However, I can be certain of one thing. Let me test the waters first. Dante says to Marcus, fortunately, I have you here with me. Marcus looks confused and lets out a puzzled sound. Then Dante continues, when you used your body to shield me earlier, it really felt like someone was protecting me. Hearing these words from Dante, Marcus asks him with excitement. The others watched Dante talking with Marcus. After finishing their conversation, Dante walked back toward the group. Hoping Marcus would not notice, Dante crouched down and whispered to everyone, just look at my demonstration. And do it just like that. The others stared at Dante in utter speechlessness. Dante replied that doing this should be helpful to Marcus. He has been looking so listless lately. If we cheer him on by his side, he should perk up a lot faster. At that moment, Dante thought about the original events of the third regression. Marcus was supposed to fight the Iron Head Gang at Gumho Station to protect the people there, and then receive an attribute evolution. However, that opportunity was taken by Sierra. Now that I know Victor has other motives, I will not. And it's about time I dealt with Bruno. Marcus's prophet attribute needs to evolve. Is it something like praise, meaning it can make whales dance? Something like that. Nora clenched her fists and said, I understand. I also hope Marcus can pull himself together soon. Sierra looked at Dante with a suspicious gaze and asked, Dante, you're not backed by someone like the One-Eyed Diviner, are you? Dante asked, confused, what is that? Sierra asked, don't you know about Gung Yi? Gung Yi was the founder of the later Goryeo dynasty. He was blind in one eye from childhood, once became a monk, and claimed to be the reincarnation of Mithriya. Dante shrugged and said, anyway, let's all just look after him as long as we have the time. Just take turns chatting with him. Dante started a break-time quest for the group. The quest was codenamed Praise. The first challenger to try and make the goldfish dance was Sierra, who sat on the ground. Sierra said, I really like Marcus. He's always so consistent. How should I put it? He's like a steady pine tree. Marcus smiled, feeling a bit embarrassed. Haha, thank you, Miss Sierra. Then Marcus said excitedly, it just so happens that my favorite military song is called Green Pine. Dante's notification sounded. It indicated that Marcus was feeling invigorated. Sierra replied without thinking. Marcus felt a bit disheartened. That's when Sierra realized she had said the wrong thing. Sierra's words left Dante and the others completely speechless. After Sierra failed the quest, the second challenger, Nora, stepped up. She said, I've rarely met someone as full of justice as Mr. Marcus. Listening to Nora's praise, Marcus replied with an explanation. Actually, it's not like that. Marcus replied gratefully, but I still want to thank you, Miss Nora. Watching Nora's performance, Dante thought to himself. Then Eli stepped in. Eli gave Marcus a thumbs up and exclaimed, Marcus, your muscles are the best. Marcus chuckled and replied, Thanks, little guy. A notification sounded, indicating that Marcus's confidence had increased. Marcus's behavior left Dante and the others feeling completely speechless. Dante sighed, remarking on how truly naive he was. Things were progressing smoothly. Nora remarked, Who would have thought such soulless praise would actually work on him? Sierra asked in shock, Wait, so that's all it takes? Dante then said to them, It should be about right for Marcus over here. Eli walked toward Dante and the others. Meanwhile, Marcus was looking up at his status panel. He was watching the prompts on the panel, waiting for the chance for his attributes to evolve. Just as Eli reached them, Dante praised him, saying, Good work, Eli. Also, did you look into the thing I asked you about? Hearing Dante's question, Eli looked at the insect on his head for the answer. They said that girl is currently on the T floor. After hearing Eli's reply, Dante turned and thanked him. Then he told the other two, I'll be right back. After giving them some instructions, Dante stepped onto the stairs with a thud. Dante murmured, If I can find Zoe now, I can make use of her combat power. Dante slowly walked upstairs. Suddenly, a burst of laughter echoed. Someone mocked, Who do we have here? Isn't this the freelance tenant? The speaker was one of Bruno's lackeys. A few lackeys approached Dante and sneered. After causing such a scene, you actually dare to come upstairs. You've got some nerve. Another lackey added. Word is you survived yesterday without even having a room. Is that true? Looks like Victor must have helped you out. Dante completely ignores their words. Turning to look at the surrounding green zone, he counts one in his head. After checking the green zone on this floor, he heads upstairs. Seeing Dante about to leave, the thugs call out again. Aren't you tired of being Victor's lackey? You should join our landlord alliance. Bruno said he might even consider taking you in. Another one chimes in, of course. The condition for joining is that you bring those women along with you. Hearing that, the thugs start laughing lewdly. Dante walks up to the floor above and looks around. 11 in total, he murmurs inwardly. At that moment, the thugs catch up and demand aggressively, Hey, are you ignoring me? Dante replies casually, I am listening. Tell Bruno I will consider it. As Dante continues forward, he thinks to himself, It looks like yesterday's scenario reduced the number of rooms significantly. But to carry out his plan, the number of rooms was still a bit risky. Seeing that Dante remained silent, the lackeys mistook it for fear and burst out laughing. Dante looked at the exit sign on the elevator, noting that the first basement level was just above. Suddenly, a decorative knot with a small white rabbit fluttered, and a long blade whooshed past Dante's cheek, cutting a few strands of his hair. Startled, Dante realized the person standing behind him was Zoe. Breaking into a cold sweat, he glanced at the blade tip hovering just inches away. Zoe then said in a regretful tone, Mister, you've really disappointed me. Dante's heart raced. When did she get behind me? I didn't hear or feel a thing. Could she be using a secret skill, like Ghost Step? He mused that while Zoe was quite impolite, her strength was undeniably impressive. Zoe then asked, Mister, you surely realize what would happen to those girls of yours if you made a deal with those guys, right? Hearing Zoe's question, Dante answered that of course he knew. Then Dante thought to himself, if Sierra were to find out about what those people said, she would definitely cut off their heads. Hearing Dante's reply, Zoe asked angrily, Knowing that, you still did it. You might as well have died yesterday. Dante nervously told her to put the knife down first, then explained that he came to talk about something. Hearing Dante's words, she asked if he came here specifically to see her. Dante raised both hands and turned around to say that he was indeed here just for her. While Dante turned around to look, Zoe behind him had already vanished without a trace. As Zoe planted her feet to steady her stance, she had already appeared right in front of Dante. Asking what he wanted to discuss with her, Dante hurried over to the elevator exit and thought in shock that she was way too fast. Hearing what she said, Dante countered, I do not understand why you are standing here. Zoe raised a hand to block Dante and explained that her master told her to stand guard here and let no one pass, so he could not go through either. Hearing this, Dante thought in surprise, could that guy Victor be taking that route right now? It looks like I need to speed up. Then Dante said to Zoe with a serious look, I need your help. Zoe was stunned by Dante, asking in surprise, My help? Dante looked at Zoe with a determined gaze and explained, Today I am going to take down Bruno and his faction. Hearing those words, she was stunned once more. Dante just stared at Zoe right in front of him. Then Zoe asked Dante with uncertainty, "Are you serious?" After returning to the third underground level, Dante told everyone about getting Zoe to help. Sierra asked doubtfully, "Will she really help us?" Hearing Sierra, Dante thought to himself, although she lacks manners, she does not seem like a cold and ruthless person. At that moment, Zoe recalled what Dante had told her. "I have a way. As long as you are willing to help, I can execute this plan. If you are not willing to help me, most of the people here will die." Zoe rested her blade on her shoulder and shook it up and down as she said, "Those people are going to die sooner or later anyway." Dante asked, "Is that what Victor told you?" Then Dante spoke again. "I saw your quest video in the subway." Hearing this, Zoe stopped the blade resting on her shoulder. She suddenly looked back at Dante. Dante continued speaking. "It is the video of you surviving after killing your classmate. From my perspective, you did not actually want to do that." With a clatter, Zoe dropped her blade to the ground and shouted, "Stop talking." Her body trembling, Zoe gritted her teeth and stared at Dante. "Mister, what else do you know?" Dante replied, "What could I know? Of course I do not know. I was just making things up based on my thoughts. But if you ignore my request today, you will regret it for the rest of your life. You definitely will." Dante looked at his phone, saw that the time had reached 7 p.m., and spoke. "The time has come." Then Dante raised his head to look at everyone and instructed them further. "Today might be even more dangerous than yesterday. From now on, we are racing against time. We must move as quickly as possible and finish before the Prophet Alliance finds out. Sierra and Nora, take Eli to the Line 4 platform. Marcus and I will attack Bruno's stronghold." After explaining, Dante asked if everyone was ready. Once they agreed, they set off one after another. Sierra turned and spoke to the two of them. "Let us proceed according to the plan." Dante looks at Marcus and says, "Our mission is the most crucial. We need to resolve it quickly." Meanwhile, Zoe is still deep in thought about what Dante said to her. At the same time, an oblivious Bruno remains inside his green zone, with 5 hours remaining until the third main scenario activates. As mentioned previously, the group split up to carry out their respective tasks. Sierra and the others head up the stairs and arrive at the second basement level. As soon as they come up, members of the Landlord Alliance spot them. Sierra's group assumes combat stances and slowly walks toward them. The people standing in the green zone ask in a panic, "Who are you people? Do not come over, stay away from us." Sierra raises her weapon and says apologetically, "I am truly sorry." After a series of loud clashes, let us shift our perspective back to Dante. Amidst the sound of footsteps, Dante and Marcus quickly ascend the stairs. At that moment, Marcus turns to Dante and speaks, "Dante." Dante glances sideways at Marcus as he continues speaking. "To be honest, I am not sure if we can pull this off. The others seem to depend on me much more than I expected. It feels like a heavy burden. I really do not know if I can do this." Hearing Marcus speak like that, Dante is quite surprised. He thinks to himself, "Brother, you are the core of this operation. You cannot lose heart now." Dante reassures Marcus, saying, "We are definitely going to make it. Marcus, you are the one we rely on the most." Hearing Dante's words, Marcus gives a sheepish laugh and says, "Thanks for saying that. Actually, this is my first time experiencing anything like this. Back in the military, I was never trusted like this by anyone." Dante thinks to himself that this is another detail not mentioned in Ways of Survival. Dante tells Marcus, "Once all of this is over, I would love to hear your story, Marcus." Hearing this, Marcus slows down his pace, stops, and says, "Whenever I talk with you, Dante, I sometimes get a very strange feeling. It is as if you have known me for a very long time." As Dante looks at Marcus, waiting down below, a notification rings out. Marcus has begun to open his heart to you. Then Marcus said to Dante, "I am not saying this out of mere curiosity. No matter what, I am your ally." Marcus thought to himself at that moment, even if my explanation was not entirely clear, Dante should be able to understand. Suddenly a voice interrupted them. "Are you not Victor's friend? Did you come here to negotiate with us?" Dante and Marcus both looked toward the person. The one speaking was a lackey of Bruno. At this moment the lackey was dragging a woman by her hair. The woman was crying in terror and spoke in a panicky voice, "Save me. Please save me." Then the lackey asked with a mocking tone, "How come only the two of you came? Where are the others?" The lackey glanced at the woman and added, "Do not worry about her. She is only like this because she refused to sell us her room." Dante cast a side glance at Marcus. At this moment veins were bulging all over Marcus's body and face. He stared at the lackeys ahead with a murderous look in his eyes. Then Marcus shouted, "Let her go." Hearing what Marcus said, the lackey replied in bewilderment, "What did you say?" As the lackey drew his weapon, he glared fiercely at Marcus and said, Who do you think you are, meddling in my business? What kind of person are you to give me orders? Marcus looked toward Dante, waiting for his instructions. Dante gave a slight nod. At that moment, a prompt rang out. Marcus's stats were about to evolve. Dark green energy began radiating from his body. Let us begin. Dante watched the henchmen taking up their stances, thinking to himself, I need to get the maximum return here, with the absolute minimum investment. I have other uses for my remaining coins. Then a prompt sounded. You invested 1,200 coins in stamina. Stamina increased from level 15 to level 18. You now have 20,450 coins remaining. Just as Dante and the henchmen faced off, a loud clattering sound echoed in their ears. Everyone froze for a moment. The crashing noises continued to ring out. The nervous henchman looked around anxiously. What is going on? What is that sound? While the henchmen were still unsettled, Dante tapped his toes lightly on the ground. With a swift flash, like a streak of lightning, Dante darted past the henchman from front to back. In an instant, he slashed the henchman in white. The injured lackey saw blood immediately burst out. He stared in terror at his wounded arm, where blood was gushing from the wound like a fountain. The henchman let out a miserable shriek and cried out, Bastard, my hand. As mentioned previously, after slashing the lackey, realizing their objective was met, Dante and Marcus turned and bolted. The henchmen behind them only realized what was happening when the two started running, and shouted in unison, Those guys are trying to escape, stop them. At that moment, Dante looked at Marcus and said, Marcus, the battle has begun. Hearing Dante, Marcus gave an affirmative reply. Over by the restrooms. A henchman cried out in surprise, Bruno, look over there, someone is running this way. Hearing the lackey's words, Bruno turned to look. The people approaching them were none other than Dante and Marcus. The surrounding henchmen drew their respective weapons, shouting, Stop them. Surround them. Marcus raises his shield to block in front of his chest, charging forward like a wild bull. Marcus is moving at such a high speed that the thugs have no time to dodge, forced to use their weapons to block. However, the impact of this charge is immense. As their weapons shatter upon impact, the thug is sent flying backward, colliding with the men behind him. Dante seizes the opportunity to rush forward with his sword. The moment his foot steps into the area, a notification sounds. You have violated someone else's private territory. Following the prompt, the surroundings begin to materialize, and 4 turrets appear as the system warns. Bruno activates his stigma, causing the 4 turrets in the armed zone to pivot with a creaking sound. Dante starts charging up, as energy gathers at the gun muzzles with a rising hum. At that moment, Marcus shouts Dante's name from behind, and violently hurls his shield toward Dante. The shield spins through the air like a top toward Dante, continuing to rotate non-stop even after crossing the boundary. Dante turns sideways and reaches out to grab the shield. After catching it, Dante comes to a halt, facing the incoming barrage of attacks from behind. Dante uses the shield to block them, triggering a flurry of loud clangs and countless sparks. Faced with this heavy assault, Dante cannot help but look startled. The surrounding turrets repeat their trick, firing at Dante amidst the continuous barrage of crashing sounds. Thick smoke billowed around Dante. As the smoke cleared, Dante peeked out with one eye. Suddenly, a system prompt rang out. Due to the passive effect of the unbreakable conviction item, your physique level has broken through level 20, granting an even higher tier of toughness to protect your body. With a sharp slap, Bruno slammed his book down on the stool. He stood up and looked at Dante. So the arrogant and impudent tenants have arrived. Judging by your fully armed appearance, you do not look like you are here to pay your fines. He then asked what they wanted. Another system prompt followed. Because you are operating inside private property, the illegal intruder stats will be partially reduced. Hearing the prompt, Dante thought to himself, in such a short amount of time, his armed zone has leveled up already. Dante looked at Bruno and replied, I do not want to be a tenant anymore. Bruno put his hands in his pockets and smiled at Dante. Interesting. Are you trying to take my territory? Right as Bruno finished speaking, a prompt arrived stating that Bruno was loading enhanced magic bullets into the mini turrets. Marcus froze for a second, then rushed toward Dante when he saw the turrets. The turret starts gathering energy again, preparing to unleash a new round of attacks. Bruno says with a grim smile, Go to hell. Right then, someone shouts, Mr. Bruno, wait. Dante watches several panicked henchmen run toward Bruno. They bear slash marks on their backs from a long sword. The henchmen cry out, Our territory was taken by that swordsman brat. He attacked out of nowhere, and we had no defense. Bruno's expression hardens as he asks about the swordsman. At this moment, Marcus comes to Dante's side and asks with concern, Dante, are you all right? Dante turns to him and says, Marcus, now is the time. Hearing Dante's words, Marcus is stunned. Dante adds, smash everything to pieces. Marcus looks at his own hands in silence for a moment. Then he clenches his fists as a golden light erupts from them. A notification sounds, indicating Marcus's attributes are evolving. Instantly, golden light surrounds Marcus and kicks up a small whirlwind. Watching Marcus complete his evolution, Dante thinks to himself that this operation has achieved its crucial core objective, which is Marcus's attribute evolution. This scene is somewhat touching. Behind Marcus, a pair of giant golden hands appears. This is one of my favorite moments in Ways of Survival. I never expected to see it with my own eyes. That feeling is truly indescribable. Steel Sword Emperor. The reason Marcus can become such a top-tier supporting character is simply because, at least within his own domain, Marcus is the absolute strongest in Ways of Survival. A notification sounds. Due to attribute evolution, a new stigma has unlocked. Marcus uses the stigma skill Mountain Smash. Marcus pulls his arm back and extends it horizontally. The clothes on his arm instantly burst apart. Marcus cries out and charges fiercely downward. With a loud crash, Marcus strikes the ground. With his glowing golden fist, a series of cracking sounds echoes out. The ground shatters sequentially like an earthquake. People around scream in panic, asking what is happening. The ground caves in beneath Bruno with a sharp crack. Immediately afterward, the ground begins to collapse entirely. At that moment, a notification arrives. The green zone has been destroyed. The private territory has been destroyed. Dante watches the collapsing ground. Smoke filled the air. Marcus rested his massive arms on his legs. He breathed heavily. Then Marcus asked Dante, "You said earlier that once this is over, you wanted to hear my story, right?" Marcus took a deep breath and continued, "I would like to hear your story too. There are so many things I am curious about regarding you." Dante looked at Marcus in surprise and thought to himself, a supporting character from the novel I used to read is actually starting to feel curious about me. Dante replied to Marcus, "You will find my story very boring." Marcus laughed and said, "Even so, I still want to hear it." Dante felt awkward and embarrassed, thinking how strange this was. Suddenly, a voice rang out, "Please, save me." Both of them looked toward the source of the sound. As they walked to the edge of the deep pit, Dante looked down. Several people were sprawled out at the bottom. Dante said, "Let us finish taking care of business first, though? Let us finish things first." Bruno, his head covered in blood, looked up at the two of them. He muttered, "You bastards." Dante looked down from above at the heavily injured Bruno. Then he smiled and said, "All right, then let us go back to the era without private territories." Omniscient reader viewpoint, after dealing with Bruno and his crew. Dante turned and walked away. Suddenly, someone called out, "Brother Dante, hey Dante." Hearing the voice, Dante and Marcus turned around to look. It was Sierra and the others, hurrying over. Dante looked at them and asked, "Did you smash all the green zones?" Sierra replied, "Do not worry, we smashed all of them. We never expected that rooms could be destroyed in such a simple way. The few of us hammered against the ground together, and with a crack, it shattered to pieces." Dante had asked Nora, Sierra, and Eli to destroy the small-scale green zones, because aside from Bruno territory, most of the remaining green zones held 3 people or fewer. Dante smiled and said to everyone, "You all worked hard." Before he could finish his words, Bix shouted in a furious voice, "Hey, you idiot, what on earth are you doing?" Because Bix was broadcasting at such a loud volume, Dante's eardrums were instantly ruptured. He hurriedly covered his ears. The others looked in utter bewilderment at Dante covering his ears. Bix continued, "Because of what you did, the constellations in the Chumuro area are in complete uproar right now." Hearing Bix, Dante replied, "Be quiet. I am already getting a headache from all those messages from the constellations." Chimes echoed endlessly in Dante's head as 300 coins arrived. Having received 300 sponsor coins, numerous constellations were highly appreciative of Dante's actions. The constellation's secretive plotter sponsored 300 points, feeling that everything being smashed to pieces was quite thrilling. "Do you not realize that Chungyuro is not the only place with my channel? Do you really not know what kind of consequences this will cause?" Dante interrupted and asked whose channel Bruno belongs to. Bix replied that he belongs to that guy Dorian's channel. Hearing Bix's information, Dante asked, "Is that the goblin who came to replace you before and subscribed to Dorian's channel? What kind of constellations are those?" "Are mainly looking for entertainment." At that moment, Dante sees a familiar face arriving. Before Dante can speak, Zoe asks first if the zones are all cleared out. "Judging by your look, was it easy?" Dante thinks to himself that the green zone sized for 5 to 8 people was all entrusted to Zoe, were places that even Sierra's power could not easily handle. She truly lives up to being Victor's disciple, or rather, the incarnation of a saint. At this point, everyone looks toward the tunnel entrance at the same time. Dante says, but what should we do now? Those guys are definitely going to come rushing over like crazy. Zoe says, they are here. Right then, a crowd of thugs comes charging down the stairs, shouting aggressively at the top of their lungs. He is right there. Grab that guy quickly and kill him. Mr. Bruno. Are you all right? Seeing the thugs closing in around them, Dante and the others also get into a fighting stance. At this moment, Bix uses a mocking tone and laughs as he says to Dante, Brat, you are really in for it now. A chime sounds with a notification. A bounty quest has been triggered on everyone's status window. At the same time, a bounty mission appeared, an assassination request with C-rank difficulty. The objective was to kill a specified target. The target was Dante, the incarnation of Chung Yuro. The time limit for the mission was 10 minutes. The reward was 2,000 coins. After reading the notification on their panels, everyone turned to look at Dante. Zoe looked at him with a teasing expression and said, By the way, I'm not helping you this time. Dante closed his panel and replied, I wasn't expecting you to anyway. Then Sierra teased, So, if I kill you right now, I get 2,000 coins. Hearing Sierra's sarcastic tone, Dante smiled and asked, What's up? Are you planning to kill me? Sierra replied, Of course not. But if you gave me 200,000 coins, then I might consider it. At that moment, Marcus spoke up. Dante turned to look at Marcus. He activated his character view skill. Marcus's attributes showed the stigma of the justice seeker. His special skills included bayonet art, mountain crusher, and patience. Then Dante asks Marcus, How many more times can you use that skill from just now? Marcus thinks about it for a moment. He replies that he should only be able to use it 1 or 2 more times at most. Seeing so many people looking at them, Eli starts to feel nervous. Dante places a hand on his shoulder and reassures him. Do not be nervous. The ones we have to face are not here yet. Dante looks at the surrounding area. He thinks to himself, I do not remember which regression this was, but I am certain I read about this part. Driven mad by repeated regressions, Victor destroys all the green zones the moment he arrives in Chung Yuro. That means the situation back then was just like this one. A notification chime rings out. All green zones within the station have been destroyed. The main scenario system has malfunctioned. Scenario difficulty will be automatically adjusted based on remaining progress. Scenario details have been updated. The main scenario of emergency defense has begun. Because all green zones within the station have been destroyed, the monsters corresponding to the remaining survival days will appear simultaneously. Please survive against the flood of monsters for the remaining time. Time limit is 8 hours. Reward is 1,000 coins. Failure means death. Just as the alert tone fades, a large area of red light begins to emerge around them. Monsters also start appearing in massive numbers within the red light. The emergency defense battle is underway. People nearby cry out in panic, asking what those things are. The monsters launch indiscriminate attacks. Countless creatures swarm in from all directions. The crowd scatters in every direction. As screams fill the air, Dante surveys the chaotic scene and gives out instructions. Marcus, run toward that staircase. Dante leads the remaining 3 people toward the staircase on the other side. At that moment, Dante hears other footsteps behind him and comes to a halt to look back. The person behind him sees Dante stop. The people behind started shouting, What are you doing? Get out of the way, have you lost your minds? Dante drew his sword and said, It seems you still do not understand the situation. Then Dante thrust his blade directly into the steps. Sword aura began to shatter the staircase. Even if you make it up, you will not survive. Hearing the cracking sounds beneath their feet, the stairs began to collapse on a massive scale. Dante surged his magic power once more into the steps. They exploded instantly. Debris flew everywhere. The crowd below saw the explosion and turned to flee in panic. Dante thought, because right now in Chung Yuro, there is no safe place left. If you want to survive, there is only one way. After the explosion, right before Dante and the others, a 10-meter circular crater appeared. At that moment, an angry henchman asked, What do you want? Dante looked down coldly at the people below and replied, What else could we do? Naturally, we are going to make you fight the monsters. Hearing Dante's words, the henchman gritted his teeth and replied, Are you out of your mind? Stop talking nonsense and get lost. You are the bastard who smashed all of our rooms. Then another person spoke up. Let us quickly find another staircase. Dante ignored their conversation and said, I am afraid things will not go as you wish. Marcus activated his skill, mount shattering, once again. With a loud crash, the surrounding lackeys turned their heads in confusion. What is happening? Are you insane? Watching Marcus destroy the opposite stairs as well, a lackey panicked and said, Could the other staircases have been destroyed too? Zoe questioned him, saying, Wait a minute, mister. This is different from what you told me before. If we just leave them be like this, everyone here is going to die. Dante replied. As Dante activated his bookmark skill, the rustling sound of pages flipping echoed out. The directory of people stored in the bookmarks began to display. The incitement skill has been activated. It has a duration of 5 minutes. As mentioned previously, Dante activated the number 3 bookmark. Dante shouted out to Bruno. Following his voice, the crowd below all looked over at Dante. Dante looked at Bruno, who was still standing there in a daze. Dante asked how long he planned to just stand there foolishly. If he wanted to survive, he needed to take action. As long as he moved, everyone else could survive as well. Hearing Dante's words, Bruno finally snapped out of it. He looked at Dante and cursed to himself in his heart. You little brat. Since when did you start lecturing me? At that moment, the people around began to look toward Bruno. They pleaded with him. Mr. Bruno, please save us. Listening to the voices around him. At this point, using the attribute of the number 3 bookmark, Dante incited everyone. He said the third task was not as difficult as they imagined. If everyone abandoned their rooms and joined the defense battle, he believed the system would only spawn a number of monsters they could completely handle. Watching the crowd surround Bruno, Dante thought to himself that half of what he said was the truth. If before I had arrived here, Chung Euro could have united to fight the monsters, casualties would certainly have been lower than now. That is to say, the biggest trap in this scenario was the green zone. At that moment, looking at the crowd, someone started reaching out toward Bruno. Seeing this situation, Dante shouted loudly again. If Bruno fights together with everyone here, everyone will surely be able to survive. Bruno looked at the current situation, gritted his teeth, and cursed silently. Then he waved his hand and shouted to the people around him. Everyone gather close. Hearing his words, the crowd began to gather together. Bruno shouted to the crowd. It will take some time for me to reset the arm zone. Hold on a little longer. Hearing Bruno, the crowd drew their weapons and roared. The crowd took up defensive stances, and the monsters immediately attacked them. It was still somewhat difficult for the crowd to fight the fierce monsters. At that moment, a man was slashed on the back by a monster from behind. Seeing someone get hurt, Dante called out to Nora. Nora understood and gave a reply. She used golden threads to wrap around the injured man and pulled him back abruptly. The man, panting heavily, says thank you. Lifting his head, he locks eyes with Dante. Dante suddenly asks, what is it? Were you after my bounty? Right then, a notification rings out. The bounty time has ended, and the bounty on Dante has been lifted. Hearing this, Dante smiles and tells the man, what a pity, why did you not make your move a bit sooner? At this, the others look angrily at the injured man. The man looks ashamed and stammers. I am so sorry. That is when Bruno shouts out loud. Everyone get out of the way. Dante and the rest all turn to look at Bruno. Red light flashes beneath Bruno's feet. In the blink of an eye, Bruno's skill, private territory, spreads across the entire platform instantly. Then he activates arm zone. Amidst a grinding mechanical sound, the turrets adjust their aim. They unleash a frantic barrage of fire at the swarming monsters ahead. Clattering echoes continuously. Bruno yells out, all of you go die, you disgusting monsters. Seeing the monsters pinned down by the turrets, the crowd begins to flatter Bruno, saying, as expected of Mr. Bruno. At that moment, Marcus returned to their camp. He looked at the scene below and said that the mental fortitude was incredible. Sierra looked closely at Marcus and spoke. Marcus, you have worked hard. Dante observed for a moment and told everyone. His mental technique seems to consume a lot of magic power. Sierra asked, is it really okay for us not to step in and help? Dante replied that his mental technique has a very high cost-performance ratio. For a short time, Bruno alone is enough. Let us take this opportunity to slack off for a bit. Sierra asked with secret delight. Has personal rest time arrived this quickly? That is great, exactly because I am lacking sleep. She then looked at Dante and asked, is this really okay? Without explaining further, Dante simply said, just consider yourselves lucky to have followed the right person. Sierra pointed at Bruno and the others, asking, what about them? Dante looked up at them and said, they are the ones who followed the wrong person, of course. Meanwhile, Bruno clenched his fists tightly and roared up toward the sky. Damn it all. Bruno kept cursing non-stop in his mouth through continuous attacks on the monsters. Bruno's skill, his private territory and armed zone levels increased accordingly. Then he also acquired the protective wall skill. Dante looked down at Bruno and thought to himself, the battle has only been going on for an hour. I cannot believe he leveled up this much in such a short time. It seems the sponsor behind Bruno is not ordinary either. The real question is how long that kind of exceptional sponsorship can last. Just then, Zoe pointed below and laughed as she spoke. Look at that uncle. How did he turn out like this in just 1 hour? Dante said helplessly. He was just acting crazy and yelling at me to save people. The speed at which he changes his face really lives up to being Victor's disciple. Dante looked back at the sleeping Sierra and sighed. Sierra actually fell asleep. She really has nerves of steel. Dante asked Zoe, "How come your master still has not returned?" Zoe told Dante, "How would I know? Master is always busy." Dante thought, "Busy, that makes sense. It is normal for him to be busy. A guy who wants to swallow everything up is naturally the busiest." Dante asked again, "When did your master go to the dungeon?" Zoe kept her eyes on the situation below. Zoe did not mind Dante's question and replied, "It was probably around 9 this morning. I forgot the exact minute." That was when Zoe finally reacted. She looked at Dante in surprise and said, "Wait a minute, mister. How did you know?" "My master went to a dungeon, you know." Dante looked at the novel content on his phone, thinking to himself that the current time was 8 in the evening. Doing a quick calculation, Victor had been inside the dungeon for nearly 11 hours. He still had not come out yet. Damn that guy. Dante then thought to himself that he had to make a move now. Then Dante sent a message to Bix. "Bix, help me open the system inventory." Hearing Dante's words, Bix materialized and asked, "What did you say, kid?" "The number of subscribed constellations is increasing right now. The channel is preparing for expansion." "Look, my channel is expanding too." Dante replied, "If you do not want to ruin the channel, you better open it for me right now. You can just tell them the channel is preparing for expansion and needs to play commercials temporarily, right?" Hearing Dante, Bix feigned distress and said, "Gosh, this is prime time for earning coins. But I do not want to run ads." Hearing Bix crying pour over there, Dante replied, "Fine, I will give you 5,000 coins to upgrade me to a gold member." Hearing Dante, Bix instantly stopped talking. Then a notification sounded that 5,000 coins had been consumed. "Congratulations on becoming a gold member of the Dakibi bag." Dante looked at the golden panel of the inventory. At that moment, Nora looked at Dante in surprise. She crouched down and asked what that was. Dante took out a sheepskin scroll from his inventory, along with a dozen round bottles filled with liquid. The sheepskin scroll was a sponsor contract worth 10,000 coins, and the 10 bottles were intermediate mana recovery potions worth 5,000 coins. "You have consumed a total of 15,000 coins. Seeing what Dante bought, Bix angrily asked him, "What was going on? Why did you buy a sponsor contract? Did you forget the terms of our contract so quickly? Did you not promise me not to sign a new sponsor contract?" Hearing Bix ask this, Dante replied, "What are you talking about? Why would I sign a sponsor star contract at a time like this?" Then Dante rolled out the contract. He rapidly scribbled in the first party section. He wrote down his own name. Dante and Nora watched. Nora asks what kind of contract this is. Unable to see what Dante wrote on it, Nora watches closely. It turns out to be a contract that flips the party of the first part into the party of the second part. Nearby, a subordinate helps support Bruno. At this moment, Bruno has consumed a massive amount of mental energy, physical strength, and magic power. Watching the monsters continue their relentless attacks, Dante calculates quietly in his mind. The scenario has already been running for an hour and a half. Next, Bruno has to hold out for another 6.5 hours. Marcus walks over carrying a large jug of water in each hand and says, "I went to the restroom and grabbed some daily necessities along the way." Dante notes that the sponsor Constellation, backed by that guy, never had many points to begin with. The Constellations subscribed to Bruno's channel are mostly looking for amusement. If the plot gets boring, the Constellations might leave the channel or cut off their sponsorships. Bruno's sponsor Constellation has limited sponsorship capabilities on its own, yet it cannot just sit back and watch its incarnation get completely destroyed. Thinking that, Dante figures a reaction should be coming soon. With a chime, Dante checks the panel where Bruno's sponsor Constellation is finally asking surrounding constellations for help. The constellation prisoner of the golden headband sends a cold laugh to the surrounding constellations. Dante looks at Bruno and shouts, "Hey." Hearing those words, Bruno looks back at Dante. Dante asks him, "Are you planning to just die like this? Or sign a contract with me?" Hearing that, Bruno looks bewildered. "What did you say?" Dante ignores the furious Bruno and continues speaking. "Although I am not a constellation and cannot become your sponsor, if you are willing, I can become your sponsor. What do you say?" Bix watches Dante in utter shock. Bruno curses in response to Dante's words. "What kind of crazy nonsense are you spouting?" Dante cuts him off. "Bruno, shut your mouth. I am not asking for your opinion, so answer me already. If you sign a contract with me, then I can sponsor you with all these potions to help you get through this mission." Bix was completely shocked by this. "Wait, you cannot possibly be serious." At that moment, a notification sound came through. Bruno's sponsor revealed its modifier with great pride. Defense Master looks at you speechlessly. As mentioned in the previous episode, Dante asked Bruno's sponsor to form a contract. Bix looked at Dante in disbelief and said, "Are you out of your mind, kid? This is the first time in my life I have seen a human try to sponsor a constellation. Hearing that, Dante replied, "What is wrong with that?" Bix still did not understand, and said, "The other party is a constellation. How could they possibly make a contract with a lowly human like you?" Dante answered, "That is just what you think. From what I can tell, that guy is completely out of coins right now." Hearing Dante's words, Bix asked in surprise, "What did you say?" Watching Bruno struggling to hold on, Dante thought to himself, Defense Master has a relatively low constellation rank compared to his abilities. It perished after a scenario experienced a long time ago. Therefore, the legend of the Defense Master is not widely known in this world. A so-called legend refers to stories accumulated over a long period. In a world driven by falling stars, legends become the source of power. Therefore, constellations whose legends have faded can no longer receive coins. Without coins, they cannot form new backing contracts. They cannot create new incarnations. They cannot project their existence through incarnations, or spread their legend further. Constellations that are no longer remembered by the world will ultimately be forgotten and vanish. The Defense Master is different from scumbags like the Monarch. He cherishes his incarnation deeply. Yet Bruno is growing weaker by the moment, which clearly shows that his coins have run out. Bruno collapses to the ground, completely out of stamina. His subordinates rush forward to ask, "Mr. Bruno, are you all right?" Nora looks down at Bruno and says, "Dante, look at that person. If this keeps up, he might die." Hearing Nora's words, Dante gives no reply. He only thinks to himself that Nora might be right. If things keep going this way, he might actually die. "What do you plan to do, Master of Defense?" At that moment, Bruno was coughing violently. Blood started pouring from his mouth and nose. With a chime, a system panel popped up. The Constellation Master of Defense became curious about the contents of the contract. Bix saw the message and widened his eyes in shock, saying, "Is this real, kid?" The Master of Defense began reading the contract. Hearing the prompt, Dante's mouth curved upward slightly. The Master of Defense asked for a little time to consider. Bruno looked at the panel in front of him and shouted, "What is this situation? What does this message mean?" Dante thought to himself, what could it mean? It means you have just been sold out. The panel lit up as the Master of Defense added a contract clause. If you agree to the new terms, the Master of Defense will agree to sign a contract with you. The constellation began entering its own terms. Article 14. Party A acknowledges Party B's property rights and must guarantee the private property and right to survival of Bruno. Article 15. Party A shall stay by the side of Party B's private property Bruno and assist in his growth. Looking at these two clauses from the Master of Defense, Dante thought to himself, well, I was planning to make Bruno my subordinate anyway, and put him through rigorous training afterward anyway. So I can put him through a brutal training regime afterward to ensure he does not get himself killed, though even if those extra terms amount to nothing, it still does not matter. What matters most to me is the third condition. Party A immediately acquires the authority to command Bruno's private property, up to 10 times per day. After reading the contract, Dante looks up and says, "Fine, I will sign with you." With those words, Defense Master signs the Party B column, and a prompt rings out that the contract has been signed. At that moment, Bruno's cough grows increasingly severe. Everyone around him watches with worried expressions. If Bruno cannot hold on, everyone here will die beneath the claws of the monsters. A mana potion wreathed in golden threads floats beside Bruno. Staring at the potion before him, Bruno asks what it is. Hearing his question, Dante replies, "Drink this mana potion and you can keep fighting." Snatching the potion, Bruno says, "Fool, do you think this makes me forgive you?" With a pop, Bruno pulls the stopper out. He gulped down the magic potion. A prompt rang out. Bruno's magic power has been restored. With a snap, Bruno smashed the empty bottle to the ground. He slowly got to his feet and said, "The moment I get out of here is your death sentence." Bruno glared fiercely at Dante. Dante snapped his fingers and said, "Shut your mouth." A notification sounded in Bruno's head. Command rights activated according to the contract terms. Bruno's mouth instantly clamped shut, leaving him able to make only muffled humming sounds. Seeing Bruno's bizarre behavior, everyone around had no idea what was going on. Dante looked at the ridiculous sight of Bruno and said, "You can focus on your battle here, and also, do not ever mess with my companions again." Watching Bruno sweating profusely and struggling, his subordinate asked, "Mr. Bruno, what is wrong with you?" At that moment, Bix started to speak, saying, "That guy Dante." Hearing Bix trail off without finishing, Dante asked, "What is it?" Bix asked Dante suspiciously, "Could it be that you were aiming for Bruno right from the very beginning?" Dante does not answer Bix, just giving a slight shrug in response. Seeing this reaction, Bix complains in frustration, "Are you crazy? How can a mere human form a contract with a constellation? What kind of monster did I sign up with?" The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon considers your attitude extremely insolent. The constellations have mixed reactions to Dante, though some find his thoughts quite amusing. At that moment, Dante turns to the others and speaks. I am sorry, everyone, but I need to step away for a brief moment. Nora asks in surprise, Dante, are you leaving right now? Hearing the question, Dante explains that there is something he has to take care of right away. You selfish bastard, only caring about items while ignoring everyone else. Where do you think you are going? Just then, a newly awakened Sierra rubs her eyes and asks the same thing. Dante, where are you going? With a resolute look in his eyes, Dante thinks to himself. I am going to give Victor a solid smack on the back of his head. Victor feels a splitting headache as his consciousness begins to fade. Maybe I should just give up in this life, he thinks. I will definitely succeed in the next one. Such are the thoughts of Victor, while Dante simply stares at his phone. Looking at the novel text on the screen, his 8th regression in life. Dante nervously taps the screen, thinking it cannot possibly turn out this way. Mr. Dokja, what are you looking at? Sierra asks, leaning over to look at Dante. Dante seems not to hear Sierra at all, keeping his eyes fixed on his phone and pondering deeply. Why did he regress again? He regressed for the 3rd time, damn it. Why is he messing around like this? Let me check the calendar. The timeline changed so much I lost track of the date. Let me see. Sierra walks up to Dante. Sierra leans in and asks, you are acting very suspicious. So who on earth is that bastard? Are you sure he is even worse than Bruno? Facing the pressing Sierra, Dante quickly replies, of course he is. He is way worse than Bruno. Dante takes Sierra and Eli and heads toward their destination. Sierra asks, just leaving Bruno behind like that, are we sure that is really okay? It is fine, do not worry. Dante thought to himself, leaving Marcus and Nora there to keep an eye on Bruno. Leaving them there would actually be much safer. Dante recalled Marcus telling him to just toss a potion to him every 10 minutes. There was nothing else that needed to be done. They could just rest while watching him. Actually, compared to Bruno and the task, Dante was much more worried about Victor. At that moment, Zoe shouted in a hurry. Wait a minute, mister. Dante stopped and turned to look at Zoe. Zoe asked, where are you going? You came just in time, come along with me too. Dante thought to himself that this girl had an incredible intuition. Dante slowly replied that Victor was in danger now. Dante recalled that in the original story, Victor had cleared the hidden dungeons in Chungmuro a total of 8 times. Out of those, there were 2 failures and 6 successes. The 2 failures happened during his early regressions, specifically the 1st and the 11th. However, the current Victor was only on his 3rd regression. Dante turned to Zoe and asked, did that guy go into the dungeon by exit 1? Zoe nodded and replied, yes, master, that is the one. Dante noted that he had already been in there for nearly 11 hours. If we leave him alone. Dante thought to himself, if my guess is right, our damned regressor is currently walking right into a bad end. As the group stared at the exit 1 departure point, Zoe anxiously asked, what will happen if we do not help him? Dante looked toward the exit and answered, if we do nothing, Victor is going to die today. Looking ahead at the National Theater, a system message appeared. Hidden dungeon discovered. This dungeon has already been found by someone else. First discovery achievement cannot be obtained. Dante pushed his hand through the ink-like barrier. The 4 of them started looking around at their surroundings. Countless wisps of black chi drifted through the air, accompanied by a crackling sound. A notification sounded. You have received a new hidden scenario quest. Theater Dungeon, difficulty level 1. Completion condition, eliminate the master of the theater dungeon. Time limit is 1 hour. 4,000 points have been entered into the theater dungeon. At that moment, dark clouds began to shroud the entire night sky. Then Zoe asked, mister, is what you said true? Is my master in danger? Sierra scratched her head, smiled wryly, and muttered to herself. To think a movie theater would turn out to be a dungeon. Why does this almost feel a little romantic? Zoe pressed further, asking, mister, how did you know about this? And why are you trying to save my master? It was a mix of the Constellations' hidden plots and curiosity about your motives. Hearing her question, Dante gave a disingenuous reply. Because we are companions. Hearing such a hollow answer from Dante, Zoe unhappily retorted, stop talking nonsense. Dante explained. Because your master is a useful fellow. At that, Dante thought to himself. Zoe and those constellations will naturally find it strange that I rushed over to save someone. After all, Victor is always trying to put me to death. Dante looked at the panel and felt quite happy. It turned out there was still another constellation that misunderstood the situation. The constellation on the panel, the demon-like Judge of Fire, was thrilled by the thought of helping your fallen friend turn over a new leaf and sponsored you with 100 coins. Dante recalled this story from the novel. I clearly remember that this line had once appeared in one of the regressions after Victor exceeded double digits. Still, after the captain regressed. What would the world become? I had no idea. I would always choose a world where more people could survive. Zoe asked, really? But how does that old man know so much? That is so suspicious. Sierra explained, that is because Dante has the master of Kung Yi behind him. Zoe was startled and said, seriously? Dante impatiently replied, that is not it. Dante muttered to himself, Victor talks a good game. Still, that guy really does know an awful lot about the world after Victor's regression. Whether through scientific theory or magical theory, or any other theory for that matter. Dante secretly pondered. What happens to the world? After a regressor disappears? Does it get reset along with the regressor? Or does it split off into another parallel universe branch? If it is the latter case, that would be fortunate. If it is the former, my very existence must be meant to put a stop to that guy's death loops. Zoe looked around and said, is this a dungeon? Why is there nothing here? Right then, Eli looked ahead as if he had spotted something. He turned back to Dante and spoke. Brother Dante, all these posters are torn to pieces. Who could have done this? Dante replied that he was not sure either. Dante thought to himself that this was definitely Victor's doing. Dante told the others to go upstairs and take a look. They slowly walked up the stairs. Sierra turned to Zoe and said, by the way, your name is Zoe, right? Do you also use a sword? Hearing her words, Zoe replied, that is right. I love using a sword. Sierra agreed and said, right? In my opinion, swords are simply the best. Especially because cutting people down gives you such a great feeling. Hearing Sierra say that, Zoe replied, it seems you understand this feeling too. It turns out you are a kindred spirit. Sierra glanced sideways and said, your sword looks amazing. Hearing this, Zoe happily replied, my master gave me this. Sister, what about your sword? Hearing Zoe's question, Sierra awkwardly answered, my sword is also very good. Sierra hurriedly used her wide clothes to hide her bone sword. Hearing their conversation, Dante also turned away awkwardly. For some reason, Dante suddenly felt a bit guilty towards Sierra. He turned to Zoe and asked, why are you always so polite to Miss Sierra, but so rude to me? Hearing Dante's words, Zoe awkwardly stumbled for a response. Well, maybe it is because I just cannot resist a really cool older sister. Right then, the bug in Eli's hair started making a rustling sound, passing a message to him. Finishing what the bug had to say, Eli grabbed onto Dante's hem and whispered, there are other people here besides us. Hearing that, Zoe immediately prepared for battle. Dante looked upward, secretly wondering if it was Victor. The group slowly headed up, and as they reached the stairs, someone spoke. What the heck? Everything is already completely torn to pieces. Is there anything left? There is one left here. A man holding a club asked. Can you really be sure those things are everywhere around here? Another person replied, did I not already tell you? I spent 3,000 coins to buy this intelligence from the prophets. Those guys are a bit scary, but the intel is still very accurate. Dante and the others crouched down, watching the people ahead. Zoe whispered, who are those people? I've never seen them in Chungyuro. Dante whispered back that they might have entered through the surface entrance. Hearing this, Zoe was surprised. From the surface? Isn't the surface full of poison? Besides, the mission there is hard to complete. Dante explained that the mission types and the speed of progress vary from station to station. He figured they probably came from a station that completed its mission earlier than theirs. As for the mild poisoning, it can be cured just by eating some meat from the underground monsters. Dante wondered why there was never any mention of these so-called prophets in any of Victor's previous regression lives. Who could possibly know the intel on the hidden dungeon at this point in time? That should only be Victor and me. Dante wondered what variable had changed. Just then, someone in front said, let's go inside and take a look. As a few people stood before the poster, a blue beam of light enveloped them. A buzzing sound rang out. Dante and the others were completely bewildered, watching the scene unfold. 2 seconds later, they vanished into the light. After they disappeared, the beam of light slowly faded away. Seeing this, the remaining people exclaimed in surprise. What's going on? All 4 of them just vanished. Dante walked over to the poster where the others had stood. All the posters had been torn to shreds, except for this one. Dante looked up. It read, the era forgotten by humanity shall reappear here. Dante thought of that damn Victor. Why on earth did that guy leave this specific poster? Just then, a blue beam of light enveloped them, accompanied by a buzzing sound. Suddenly, they began to panic. Yikes, what is this? Zoe and Eli started waving their arms. Dante asked Sierra, are you okay? Miss Sierra, do you like movies? Sierra noticed something. Hearing Dante ask if she was all right, she replied, of course, most people like movies, right? Hearing Sierra's answer, Dante said, well, starting from now, you might actually end up hating movies. Sierra asked in confusion, why would you suddenly say something like that? Right then, Zoe also noticed that nothing was happening to them inside the blue beam of light. A prompt rang out. You have been exposed to the projection light. The screening for this floor is about to begin. As the voice faded, Dante and the others slowly began to vanish. After they disappeared, the beam of light gradually faded away as well. Previously, Dante and the others were teleported away by the blue beam of light. As the teleportation started, their feet began to materialize first, followed by the rest of their bodies. Once they regained consciousness, they looked at the dense primeval jungle before them. Zoe asked in astonishment, "Where on earth is this?" They were standing in a clearing surrounded by countless overgrown plants. A gentle breeze blew through, making the leaves rustle. Dante and the others looked around to survey their surroundings. That was when Dante told the others, "This is the world of the movie. We need to be more careful from now on." After warning the others, Dante thought to himself, "This is a world from a movie, recreated by the power of the theater's owner on the 8th floor of the dungeon. The core of the theater dungeon is hidden on the walls, within the stages shown on those posters. Victor probably plans to clear every stage and hog all the rewards for himself." "That despicable guy," Dante complained, venting his frustration. Sierra remarked that everything happening was just too absurd. Zoe asked Dante, "Mister, what movie is this?" Dante hesitated before replying, "You'll find out soon enough." Hearing this, Zoe said with some impatience, "Can't you just tell me directly?" While Dante and Zoe were talking, Eli slowly walked toward the bushes in front of him. Seeing Eli approach the area, Zoe hurriedly called out to stop him. "Wait a minute, kid. What are you doing over there? Do not go any further." Just as Zoe finished speaking, about a meter in front of Eli, a dark shadow flew out from the bushes. Everyone was momentarily stunned by the sight. As the shadow landed in the air, its true form turned out to be a giant green mantis with 6 legs and 2 arms. Zoe reacted then, and prepared to draw her blade and charge forward, shouting out loud, "Hey kid, get back now." Instead, Eli grabbed the mantis by the waist and said, "This mantis belongs to a species of giant red wood-boring insects." Hearing what Eli said, Zoe hurriedly raised her blade upward. The edge of the sword grazed right past Eli's hair. Zoe asked in a panic, "Kid, what did you say?" At that moment, Eli was still looking calmly at the mantis before him and seemed unaware of the situation behind him. Green spheres of light began to radiate around Eli's body. Zoe looked at Eli in front of her with a dumbfounded expression. Then the mantis shook its antennae to express its goodwill toward Eli. Seeing the mantis react that way, Eli also started laughing heartily. Zoe saw this scene and pointed her blade at Eli, before turning to Dante in shock and asking, "What on earth is he?" Dante calmly replied, "Who knows?" Eli just kept nodding repeatedly at the mantis, as if they were communicating about something. Dante said, "I do not understand much myself, but those two seem to be talking. I am not quite sure either." Dante looked at Eli and thought to himself, "At this rate, we might clear the stage much easier than expected." Victor probably skipped this one just by looking at the theme. Although the main rewards of the theater dungeon are related to the movie's theme, that guy Victor should have missed it, because this movie also hides a very important reward. Just then, Eli listened to the mantis with a shocked expression and hurriedly replied, "You said what?" Then he abruptly turned to Dante and said, "Brother Dante, it is bad. It is extremely dangerous here now." Hearing Eli's words, the others were momentarily stunned. While they were still dazed, a loud crash echoed as a giant footprint landed on the ground. On Dante's side, the surrounding ground began to shake violently. Dante wondered what was going on.